So, thought I would talk a little bit more about this Cantillon effect. I mean, a lot of people seem to really dig the whole idea of what happens when new money comes into the system and what ends up happening to the state when that does take place, and when people dive into luxuries and the eventual outcome from that. Now, I have been reading from the Cantillon essay for quite some time, and chapter 8 of this essay, Cantillon's essay on economic theory, chapter 8, it's titled Further Reflections on the Increase and Decrease of Money in a State. It does a great job of really breaking it down very quickly, the whole scenario. Now, over the last couple of days, I've done a couple of videos talking about this exact scenario taking place, this whole new money coming in and what happens to the state when it does. Now, I'm going to give a brief kind of overview of that, and then I'm going to continue on reading from the essay, because I think the final chapter, or the final paragraphs geez, maybe I shouldn't do this now. Within this essay, the final chapters within this chapter of the essay, there we go, really tell it all. So anyway, breaking it down real quick, the increase of money into the state. So when new money comes into the state, what happens, right? So, man, I've said this so many times recently. Okay, so when the new money comes into the state, the people who get that money first, they get to enjoy that at face value. So they go out there and they get to buy things. And as that new money comes into the system and starts circulating through, it starts increasing the prices as it starts increasing the consumption. So the people who had first access to it, they're buying things at face value, but then as that money starts to increase and circulate, the items become more expensive for the people, and then the people at the end of the line who have last access to the money, they're the ones who suffer the most by it. Okay, so what ends up happening is that if this continues, it starts driving in ever increasing amounts of foreign imports, because the people who have first access to this money, they don't want to spend it on higher prices, right? They want those items to be the same price. They want to enjoy this new money at that face value. So they start seeking out those same products from foreign importers. And now the United States has suffered through quite a bit of this when we explain it from, like, if you think back in the 50s and 60s when we were a manufacturing powerhouse, we would export a lot of items, import a lot of money from the rest of the world, and then lend that money out. All this new money coming in gave us a higher standard of living. As we enjoyed this higher standard of living and started moving into luxuries, this is really where the problem started to exist, as the dive into luxuries meant that we were importing ever increasing amounts of foreign production and exporting ever increasing amounts of domestic manufacturing. And so eventually the final outcome from this will be poverty for everybody. Now, Cantillon goes and explains this. Now, he explains it in a way from back in like the 1700s, right? Because, I mean, obviously he didn't know about cryptocurrencies and cell phones and airplanes and stuff like that. But the flow of money and what happens when that flow of money takes place, I don't think changes. And you can see a lot of the similarities that took place back even in the 1700s that are existing today. So anyway, I'm going to go and read from this essay here, and I think that we're going to probably really enjoy some of the things that Cantillon has to say. Let me see. I kind of lost my place here when I was started. Let's see here. Okay, so this is really where it gets exciting, because Cantillon talks about all the different ways that money can come into the state, right? He talks about the manufacturing of goods, which is like the most abundant way. He talks about, like, foreign ambassadors moving there. He talks about the silver mine, being the production of money. But he says there's two other ways of getting money into the state. And he says, okay, let me read from this essay here. Actually, you know what, guys? I'm old now, so I went and got glasses so I can actually read. And, oh man, it's like a whole new world. All right, let's see here. I still have to mention two other methods of increasing the amount of money circulating in a state. The first is when entrepreneurs and private individuals borrow money from their foreign correspondents at interest, or when foreigners send their money into the state to buy shares of government stock. Think about that, right? This often amounts to very considerable sums on which the state must annually pay interest to these foreigners. These methods for increasing the money in the state do make it more abundant and diminish the rate of interest. Now you think about like how much debt has the United States gone into and how low the interest rates have been. I mean, he almost describes exactly what's happening right now. I look funny with the glasses, don't I? All right, here we go. With with this money, the entrepreneurs in the state find it possible to borrow more cheaply to provide work and to establish factories with the anticipation of a profit. The artisans and all those whose hands this money passes through consumes more than they would have done if they had not been employed by the means of this money, right? They start consuming more. Remember, eating 2 steaks instead of 1. All right. This consequently increases prices. This consequently increases prices just as if the money belonged to the state, and though the increased consumption or expenditures this causes, public revenues derived from taxes on consumption are increased, right? So it's not even their money, right? We borrowed it. We're borrowing it here. We're eating 2 steaks now, and we're increasing the prices. And that's what they're saying, all from this borrowed money that we were doing. Money lent to the state in this manner brings many advantages with it, but in the end, it always burdensome and harmful. The state must pay the interest to foreigners every year, and aside from the loss, the state is at the mercy of the foreigners who can always cause trouble if they decide to withdraw their capital. And that's what everybody is worried about, is that the Fed, that one day the U.S. Treasuries won't have a demand for it, and that people will stop lending us money. We'll only be at the mercy of the Federal Reserve lending us money. All right, continuing on. Surely they will want to withdraw their capital when the state needs it the most, right? As when preparing for war and defeat is feared. The interest paid to the foreigner is always much more considerable than the increase in public revenue caused by this money, right? So they're basically saying the interest paid to the foreigner is always much more considerable than the increase in public revenue caused by this money. So what he is saying right there is like, by doing this, you're actually benefiting all the people who are lending you money outside of this nation, right? Okay, anyway, one can observe these loans passing from one country to another according to investors' confidence in the states to which they are sent. But in reality, states that have paid heavy interest on these loans for many years will often find themselves bankrupt and unable to repay the capital. Surprise, surprise, right? When trust is shaken, shares or public stocks fall. Foreign shareholders do not like to sustain losses, preferring to content themselves with collecting interest while waiting for confidence to return. But sometimes it does not return. In declining states, the principal objective of public administrators usually is to restore confidence in order to attract foreign loans. If ministries does not act in bad faith and keeps its obligations, the money of subjects will circulate without interruption. In this case, money from abroad has the power of increasing the quantity of money in a state. All right, so, oh my gosh. All right, I'm not used to wearing glasses, and that's really weird to take them off. Okay, so you can see right there that what he is saying is that the most abundant way of getting money into the state is by basically borrowing it. So we pretty much discussed the way of getting money into the state by the silver mine that he kind of talks about typically. And then we've talked about getting money into the state by manufacturing. But he is saying it's this borrowing that is the most abundant way of getting it into the state. And then you end up subject to the foreign outside borrowing, right? Outside the nation, you're subject to those people borrowing from you, the foreign borrowers. Okay, now let's continue on. Okay, but the borrowing road, which holds an advantage in the present, leads to a dead end and but a flash in the pan. To restore a poor state with a shortage of money, a constant and real balance of trade is needed on an annual basis, as in the development through navigation and the articles and manufacturers produced cheaper and thereby suitable for exportation. Did I read all that right? To restore poor state with a shortage of money, a constant and real balance of trade is needed on an annual basis, as the development through navigation and the articles and manufacturers produce cheaper and thereby suitable for exportation. I see. So if they start the shortage of money by producing better stuff and being able to navigate it and get it out there to, okay, yeah, that's right. So basically he's saying that if you can, in order to get a shortage of money is by producing stuff and being able to navigate or have navigation to get those things distributed, and by producing cheaper and quality goods. Okay, anyway, merchants are the first to make their fortunes, then lawyers, right, typically, surprise, then the lawyers may get their part. The prince and tax collectors get a share at the expense of all the others, and distribute their graces as they please. When money becomes too plentiful in the state, luxury will follow, and the state will fall into poverty. Right? I mean, it always falls. Everything comes down to luxury and then falling into poverty. All right. This is roughly, excuse me. This is roughly the cycle that may be experienced by a large state which has both capital and industrious inhabitants. A talented public administrator is always able to begin the cycle over again. Not many years are needed to see it tried and succeed, at least in the beginning, which makes for the most interesting situation. The increased quantity of money in circulation will be brought about by several factors that my argument does not allow me to examine now. So I guess he's basically saying like all the different ways that the people are industrial. Maybe I should have done this on a different day. All right. All the different people who can figure out a way to earn money, he's not going to list all the different ways that a nation can do that. I think that's what he was trying to get at there. All right, moving on. All right. As for the state without much capital, and where capital can only be increased by accident or by particular circumstances of the times, it is difficult to find the means that would allow them to flourish by trade. No administrator can restore the republics of Venice and Holland to their brilliant situation from which they have fallen. But Italy, Spain, France, and England, however poor they may be, are still capable of attaining high degree of power by trade alone if they led by good administration and if they operate separately. If all these states were equally administered, they would be great only in proportion to their respective capital and to the great or lesser industriousness of their people. So the last method he talks about, let's see here, the last method I can think of to increase the quantity of money actually circulating in the state is by violence and arms. Surprise, surprise, right? And this method is often blended with others, since in all peace treaties one will try to maintain trading rights and other privileges one could obtain. When a state mandates contributions or makes several other states tributary to it, this is a very sure method of obtaining their money. I will not examine the methods of putting this theory into practice, but I will say that all nations who have flourished, right, all nations who have flourished in this manner have not failed to decline, like states that have flourished through their commerce. Ancient Romans were more powerful in this manner than all the people we know of. Nevertheless, these same Romans, before losing an inch of their land, or an inch of the land of their vast states, fell into decadence through luxury and impoverished themselves by the reduction of money which circulated among them. And it was this luxury that caused their empire to pass into the hands of the eastern nations of the Orient. So right there, it keeps falling. Like every time, these people these nations or whatever, once they start diving into luxuries, once they start getting into getting the new money and they start getting these luxuries, it's only a matter of time before the new money falls off. You stop getting the new money and you start falling into poverty. It just, he describes it so well here, Man, are you guys enjoying this? If you're enjoying it, hit the like button, right? We got 58 likes, 230 of you up in here. I don't know, maybe you're not liking it. Anyway, we're going to finish this. We only got a couple more chapters to go here. We're almost done. and then we can full on discuss it. I'll start reading some of the comments there. All right. All right. So long as Romans' luxury, which did not begin until after the defeat of Antiochus, king of Asia, around AUC 564. Forgive me if I butcher names because I can't read anyway. So anyway, so long as Romans' luxury came from the production of land and labor of all the vast estates of their domain, the circulation of money only increased instead of decreasing. The public was in possession of all the gold, silver, and copper mines in the empire. They had the gold mines of Asia, Macedonia, Aquileia, and the rich mines, both gold and silver, of Spain and other countries. They had several mints where gold and silver copper coins were struck. In Rome, the consumption of all goods and merchandise drawn from their vast provinces did not diminish the circulation of money and or did not diminish the circulation of money any more than the pictures, statues, and jewels themselves. Although the wealthy landlords spent excessive amounts of their feasts and pay for excessive amounts for their feast and paid 15,000 ounces of silver for a single fish. All that did not diminish the quantity of money circulating in Rome. Given that provinces made tributes regularly, not to mention the money brought in by lenders and by governors with their extortions. The amounts annually extracted from the mines increased the circulation in Rome during Augustus' whole reign. However, luxury was already on a very great scale, and there was much eagerness not only for curiosities produced in the empire, but also for jewels from India, pepper and spices, all the rarities from Arabia, silks which were not made in the empire began to be in demand there. Nevertheless, the money drawn from these mines still exceeded the sums sent out of the empire to buy all these things. However, under Tiberius, money became scarce when that emperor collected 2.7 billion sesterces. I think I got that word right. Sesterces in his treasury, which I think was like, if I remember right, it was like a portion of a denarii. It was like a small, like kind of a dime-sized piece of silver. Hold on here. Roman money, one sester was worth 1/4 of a dinar. Originally a small silver coin, it was converted into a large bronze coin during Augustus' coinage from the 23rd BC. Okay, so anyway, the emperor collected 2.7 billion sesterces in his treasury. To restore an abundant circulation, he only needed to borrow 300 million on a mortgage of his estate. After his death, Caligula, spent all of Tiberius's treasure in less than 1 year, and it was that abundance of money in circulation was at its highest in Rome, and the wind of luxury kept blowing. The historian Pliny estimated that in his time, the emperor exported at least 100 million sesterces annually. This was more than was drawn from the mines. Under Trajan, land prices fell by 1/3 or more, according to younger Pliny. The money continued to decrease until the time of the Emperor Septimus Severus. Money was then so scarce in Rome that the emperor collected enormous quantities of wheat, being unable to collect enough tax money from his enterprises. Thus, the Roman emperor declined through the loss of its money, or the Roman Empire declined through the loss of its money before losing any of its estates. That is what luxury brought about, and what it will always bring about in similar circumstances. Okay, whew, geez, man, that was a hard one to get through. Okay, thank you very much for hitting the like button when you come in, and thank you very much for hitting that like button when you when I asked, oh, because I never ask you guys except for during these live streams, and that's to try and get the algorithm out there to get more people in here. So, according to Cantion's essay right here, the abundance of money that comes into the system will eventually lead us all into poverty. And we can see clear signs of that really taking place, especially when he talks about one of the most abundant ways of getting money into the system is by borrowing from outside of the nation. And you think about what this country is doing and what eventually that will look like when people are diving into luxuries to, because of all that new money coming in is a telling sign of it. One of the things that I kind of mention, and like, I mean, I know it's a terrible way of kind of bringing it about to, use it as an example, but I see homeless people who have cell phones, who are, who have things like, they're like, I mean, I'm not saying it's the greatest life in the world, but I've seen, places around the world where homeless people are really suffering and, from poverty. The homeless here actually have things, and that's kind of weird to think about, that, the degree of poverty from the different areas that you live at. But all in all, it eventually falls when the new money gets turned off, and the new money gets turned off when people stop lending it to us. And what ends up happening is there's only another way of doing it, and that's through violence, and that's through going through war. So that's a scary scenario to think about. Like, how is it that, nations were found themselves in this predicament? Like, you think about it, the idea of trying hard and accumulating so that you can get things that are that you can enjoy, like wealth. What is wealth? Food, conveniences, pleasures of life. This is what you want. So as you go for these things, you actually find yourself diving into luxuries because that's what you do when you work hard. But that exact thing of going into luxuries is what's going to cause the whole scenario to break down and fall into poverty. It's weird to think about. All right, I've babbled on long enough. Let's read some comments here. Wow, so many comments. Let's go up to the top here. Okay. SK, hi. Any good news? Yeah, there's always good news, man. We live, baby. Yep. What up, Woodchuck? Beatles or Stones? Huh. Hello from Joplin, right on. Hello from the Isle of Man, right on. Inflation. Welcome to another rainy Astoria day. Just wait for the downpour in a few hours. Yeah. Clouds up going. Hey, what's happening, Scott? All right, Stones. I'll make it down. I got to go down to Scott's place. He's been asking me for business cards for like a month. I got to go down and give him some. All right. I only enjoy buying food. Me too. That is like the one thing like I don't mind spending money on is buying food. I mean like everything, like I cannot find myself spending money on a car, but I'm like I like buying food. I like buying things to eat. Alright. Let's see here. United Soviet States, yeah. 101 watching and 20 likes. Now, there's a lot more now. We got 350 of you watching and 140 likes. Alright, great channel from Kenya. Right on. Alright. Let's see here. Something like that. Alright, see here. Thanks, Simon. Yeah, you guys bet. Welcome to old age. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's what... I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, I picked up an order, so I'm at work, and usually, like, the first couple of minutes I get to work, it's kind of hard to read some of the orders, but then I can focus in on it. But I noticed at the end of the day, like, I'm really tired, my eyes hurt, my head kind of hurts, and so we have these little cheater things. They're like $2, right? They just, little cheater glasses. I put them on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, all the stuff on my desk, I can see it, and I'm like, oh no, like, this is bad. I didn't realize how bad my eyes really were, so... Yeah. All right. Human nature never changes. That's why history is worth reading. It's for all seasons and all times. Yeah, for sure. Nice. Let's see. 143 watching and 31 likes. Blow up that like button, peeps. Yeah, I love this guy. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. All right. The glasses suit you. Yeah. Thanks, man. Tori, look good. Okay, this guy is like the uncle that we never knew we needed. Yeah, thanks, man. They look good. Thank you. Wagyu. How are you? Actually, I'm doing really well. People ask me that a lot, and a lot of times, people just give them that, like, generic, oh yeah, I'm doing really good. Well, are you? I mean, are you really doing good? Because I think about it, it's just like, man, I look back on my past and I used to say that all the time and I wasn't doing really good. And you should be authentic and you'd be like, I'm just doing, like, I don't know. How do you answer that question? I stopped asking people, like, I should stop asking people. And it's nothing unless, I mean, some people really want to know, like, I mean, like, I, I remember this customer, I said, dude, I am doing really good, man. I mean, the YouTube channel's doing really well. Like, the family's kicking in. I got, everything's like lined up. I'm doing awesome, man. And he was like, man, that's really good to hear. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, man. I don't mean to be bragging, but it's really kicking ass. And he was just like, well, dude, tell me more. So I was like, all right. So I'm just gonna, anyway. You and I are skinny. We need two steaks. I could see. That's the thing. Like, I don't eat a whole lot of junk food. Like, I do eat some junk food. I like Snickers. Like, I eat Snickers bars, but I don't eat a whole lot of that stuff. So I really and I am pretty active. So I eat whatever I want. Right. I mean, because I eat healthy most of the time, like if I want something, like if I want two big giant pieces of cheesecake, I'll eat it. Like I don't have any problem with that, but I don't do it very often. So when I do indulge on something like that, I'll indulge whatever as much or whatever as I want. I'll riot. you know. I learned what the real term of riot meant. Like I always thought riot was like kind of going around and breaking stuff. But riot means to indulge in, like, basically what ends up happening when you have the new money come to its peak is indulging in extreme luxuries, like belligerent indulgement, like taking like intense amount of caviar and throwing it on a Ritz cracker and like, oh yeah, that tastes good, whatever. It's just like just blatantly like spending money stupidly, just for the sheer party of it. All right. Let's see here. By the way, do you have an economics degree? No, man. I barely have a high school diploma, to be honest with you, man. I had a hell of a time in school. Like, you see how much I stumble through trying to read this. Like, by the time I get to the end of what I wanted to read here, like I'm done. Like I can't do it anymore. It's just okay, my eyes are not focusing anymore. I'm like, because like even reading this chapter would take me typically probably an hour to read this chapter, which normally, I mean, somebody could really just blast through it in like 10 minutes, right? You could just read it real quick. But in order for me to retain it, I gotta take it like paragraph by paragraph, and that's why it's so slow for me. Keeping up in school wouldn't have been possible. Like, okay, read these 100 pages tonight. It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, it was like, even if I started now, I wouldn't have 100 pages done by the time we get here. So yeah, so no, I never like took any kind of degrees or nothing like that, or got a degree or anything like that. Classes. Okay, if I could get away with stealing steak, I'd do it every day. All right. Winn-Dixie has T-bones on sale for $5.99 a pound. I would buy that for a few more likes. Tri-tip every day. I love tri-tips. I love tri-tip. I'm going to break into a grocery store at night and steal steaks, but go with a key totally unnoticed. There's really no way to get caught if you don't park anywhere near the store and you conceal your face. Interesting. Okay. How to restore confidence once it's gone. Yeah. I will quit asking for likes when we get to 50%, which is almost 100 likes. We got 392, 178. That's pretty close. All right. You will get used to wearing glasses, don't worry. The money changers. Good drunk stream. Well, okay. It doesn't mean all. Yeah. Doesn't mean that all chill. Yeah. Um. No. Only smoke plants. All right. Someone is a bit defensive. Okay. Not all money changers have to be. Okay, you guys are going on. I don't want to really get into that part. Okay. I mean, that's a whole other discussion that really I should take to Mike Martin's on his channel, where I can really just blast off about that kind of stuff. Because there's really the whole money changers thing. There's a chapter in here on in Cantion's essay. Did I leave a link down in the description? I think I left a link for you guys to get to Cantion's essay, and there is towards the very end, and I can't remember what chapter it is, but it's towards the very end. It's one of the last 3 chapters, if I remember right, and he gets into talking about what happens to the state when they try to prevent the money from leaving. And this is really a very interesting thing. This is the same reason why marijuana is absolutely useless until you make a law against it. Once you make there a law against it and you add risk, now you have something of value, because once you add risk to something, you take something that somebody wants and then you make it risky, right? Now you got some value to it. Oh man, now you got some money, right? Anything out there like that, right? I mean, take something that is normally useless and you take it somehow and make a restriction upon it, or somehow deprived, and you can add value to it. And marijuana is like the perfect example of it. So now what a state will do when it comes to money leaving the state, like they don't want it to leave the state. So what they do is they make laws. They say, okay, anybody who exports gold out of the state is going to get their hands chopped off, right? And so so now you got this huge risk. You're going to have your hands chopped off if you get caught taking gold over the borders, right? Because this is what's happening. Like all the foreign imports coming in, but now like the exporting of money, right? So the state's like, oh shoot, like we're gonna end up in poverty if we let all this gold go, right? So make a law that says you can't let the gold leave, and we'll figure things out, right? But now getting the gold out of the country has value to it, right? There's risk. And when you start trying to get the money over the border, right, and you start adding this reward for the people who can do this, right, guess what ends up happening, right? You have people who are money handlers. Right, I'm going to leave it at that. Let's move back on to what we were talking about, the Cantillon effect. I mean, if you want to figure out more about that right there, go and read the last few chapters. I can't remember. It's like the last 3 chapters, 4 chapters or something like that of the essay. Read the whole essay. It's pretty good. Yeah. All right. I just found this channel recently. Great stuff. Well, thank you, David, for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Books are cool. Yeah, well, now with my newfound friends right here, these glasses, I might actually start reading if I can. I mean, but you see my struggle, right? You see why I struggle with a lot of it. And it's amazing on how much I was able to pick up just even stumbling through a lot of this stuff. Like, you think about it, you're reading a Federal Reserve speech, it takes you like 2 days to read the speech anyway. And then it's not just a matter of just getting through the entire speech, but then also now you got to figure out every little thing that they're trying to mention and talk about and figure out within the speech itself. So sometimes a Fed speech, I would study one for 2 weeks. Like, just trying to get through it and figure out everything that they said at it. Now it's a lot easier for me. I can just read it and, and kind of just absorb it and just kind of think about like what it is that's going on with it. Before I had no clue. I'd read a speech and have no understanding of anything that they were saying, and have to sit there and really break it down. And all right, I always wonder what it will look like, the world economy, if the dollar fails. It's going to look something like that. Like, it's hard to say, because really, is the dollar going to fail? That would be the next question. It's just like, is there going to continuously be new money coming into the system? We're going into a digital, like the Fed now is coming this summer. So what will that look like? Is that going to be able to introduce new money into the system in which that other nations are going to like participate in? Like, I mean, it's hard to understand what this system is going to look like, how the people are going to deal with it. I mean, the only way to be out of that is to be away from that third party, which is gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, cash, on a limited time, But, even with cash, because the way the system would end up eventually breaking down, the demand for cash itself, not like money in the bank, because that's dangerous, but cash itself, even if the Federal Reserve was to go bankrupt, if you look at the Federal Reserve documents, it says right in it that the Federal Reserve note, like the folding papers, are the first lien and paramount right to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. And on their balance sheet, they list gold and as one of the first things on their balance sheet and SDRs. So you have access to things that are outside of this nation. Well, maybe. I mean, if you can actually get that. I mean, the idea is there. I don't know if you could actually do that, but the idea is there. And so as long as cash is still has that idea behind it, then it still has some sort of trading capability to it. Other than that, you're going to have the barter stuff, bullets and trading goods, skills, whatever it is. But gold, silver, cryptos, trading stuff, barter stuff, and cash for a limited time is the only thing to escape that scenario. Let's see here. Moving on. But China drinks tea, not coffee. Well, yeah, I know that's really weird. I don't understand that. All right, most money is made in real estate. Household wealth has grown 30 trillion in 3 years. How much debt again? Romans added tin to silver coins to inflate. Yeah, there's actually a chapter in here where they talk about steel, adding steel to the coinage, and then it's funny because they have this steel coinage, and then people were taking the coins because they needed money for commerce, right? So they're okay. It was like, okay, so we got all this commerce going on. We don't have enough money in circulation. So here, put the steel money into circulation, right? Use these steel coins. And then people were taking the steel and making other stuff out of it. And they're like, crap. So they were like, okay, well, this is what we'll do then. If people are going to take the steel coins and make other stuff out of it, then let's taint this steel with vinegar, right, and make it useless for other items, right? So now you got to use it for money because you can't really use it for anything else. So that made the money pretty much really worthless at that point. Now you couldn't even use it for anything else. And it only took like other nations to like, hey, we got to steel, like, we got iron here, we can make steel, let's boom, we got coins that look just like yours and we're going to buy all your commodities. So they busted out steel coins that look just like theirs and then took all their money. So not only did they taint their own money, but then they had it counterfeited and then bought up all the commodities with it. Good times, right? All right. Yeah, along with clipping their coins. Okay, gold hit 41 trillion mark in Weimar. The international banksters own most all the Chinese factories. 10 points for RR. Knew about the clipping of the coins. I learned about that from Michael Maloney. Yeah, clipping coins, coin clipping, where they would take the coins and clip the edges of it so there would be less coin in circulation, and they would gather up all the clippings and basically make their own, another coin out of it. Whatever, use that extra clippings that they had cut off of it for their own commerce or their own purpose. All right, let's see here. If you have money rotting in a savings account now, what would you do now? BTC, more silver, what? Why is it rotting? I don't understand. I mean, if you have money rotting in a savings account, I'm a little curious about that. Are you talking about being lost, the purchasing power being lost to inflation? Is that what you're talking about? I mean, there are stuff that's getting cheaper, I mean, you can find other things out there that are going to be buying opportunities coming into the future. Then your money isn't rotting. It's actually having potential, right? It's got potential there. I mean, I don't know what to do with money, right? I mean, that's not like what I study. I don't study what it is that you need to do to make money. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what it is that I need to do to make money on my own. That's why I have the YouTube channel. And that's why I try and look at, things that I think are going to be current trends coming into the future that I might be able to invest in. I think that the idea of cryptocurrencies are going to be very popular going into the future. I do not think Bitcoin's going anywhere. I don't think they're going to put that genie back in the bottle, and I don't care how many regulations you make about it. Just like marijuana, you take something that somebody wants and you make it illegal, it only adds value to it. So I'm not concerned about the Bitcoin becoming illegal or something like that. That's not any of my concern. So there's three places I put money. I put money into cryptocurrencies, I put it into precious metals, and then I put it into a stock portfolio, which is very minimal stuff, right? I buy Altria, which is Marlboro cigarettes and Anheuser-Busch. They're switching things around, getting in and out of like some of the like smokeless products and stuff. I don't I don't know about any of like the ins and outs of the company, whether or not they're going to be a profitable company or not. I don't know any of that stuff. All I know is that it had a decent dividend yield to it, and I know a little bit about addiction. So that's why I invest in Altria. The ticker symbol on that is MO. I'm not trying to promote that in any way. I'm just trying to say what it is that I do. So that's some of the things that I like invest in. Like, to me, buying cryptocurrencies and buying gold and silver are not investments. That's not investing at all. That is speculation straight up. Like, that's all it is. And if you think about it as an investment, like, I'm going to put my money towards this, and when I retire, I'm going to live off my Bitcoin savings, right? I mean, you're really taking your chances doing something like that. That is not like, I mean, that is a long shot, right? I mean, it may work out, it may not. I mean, but to dump all your efforts and energy and everything you're doing right now into something like that, man, that's a risky one, right? It may work out awesome for you. I don't know. But to me, like, I try to look out there and see what I believe the economy is moving towards. I mean, when we think about the Cantillon essay, we think about some of the things that are taking place out there in the world, people asking all these questions about, like, you know, what's going to happen with manufacturing here in the United States and China, where the demand for the dollar is going to go. Why is there a demand for dollar? What happens when, the demand for dollar starts to fade, and what the reaction of the people is going to be within that state because we're losing, the new money coming in. Think about it. The only way to do it is either to get to people to loan you money or violence. So guess what? It's not something you really want to see, is the dollar dominance losing its world reserve currency status, because the reaction of that state is not pleasant. It's not a pleasant one. And you think about what the United States has done for a military power, and what it is that that military power will do to try and save itself from demise by forcing the rest of the world to accept its currency. I mean, this is not a fun conclusion. I don't even like talking like this because people call me a doomsdayer, but it's not me like making this stuff up. It's the way it goes, right? Yeah. Anyway. It's a good essay. Yeah, it is. Hey, I got a super chat. Let's go find that. Hey, wait a minute. Stop. John Boy Silver, thank you very much for joining the channel. Oh no, wait a minute. You've been members for 2 months? Oh, very cool, man. Very cool. Thank you. All right, where's that super chat? Oh my gosh, look at all these comments. My goodness. Huh, there it is. All right. What is that? Douche Ellis? Is that what it says? Oh, I can hardly. Where are my glasses? There we go. Oh, I can't really see that. I'd have to have it closer. It's things that are close that I can't see. So I brought some gold, but you didn't leave a comment, bro. All right. Elijah, what does that say? Hey, Lord Humongous is in here. Right on. Ew, trans beer. What's that? All right. BRICS nations de-dollaration is here. Well, no, it's starting. It's not here. It's coming. I mean, it will be here eventually. Let's cruise down to the bottom. Let's see here. Man, there were so many comments. Okay, population is not declining yet. It's going to takes some time to peak and then fall. No, it's the infertility rate, right? It's the infertility rate, the amount of babies being born. That's what's falling. The amount of babies being born per female. That's what's fallen in nations all around. And it's not, it's westerns. It's nations that have increased their standard of living, right? In fact, Cantillon talks about it. I mean, he talks about it in here. And you know what's scary is that when you think about it from a New World Order perspective, right? Let me see if I can find it here. There's powers out there, like we don't run our lives, we don't run any of that stuff, right? There's the New World Order, the people who come down and, like, you know, really inflict the pain upon you. You'll be happy and own nothing, right? Kind of thing. So in here, there is a particular chapter that really is pretty interesting to think about. And it talks about the increase and decreasing of the population of an area, of a state. And I'm trying to find it. Where is it here? The intrinsic par value, the class of individuals, the circulation, exchange of goods, all right, the desires, fashions, and ways of the prince, the increase and decrease of the number of people in a state chiefly depends on the taste and fashions and ways of life of the property owners. Okay, that's page 85. And so now, this is a really interesting chapter, because when you think about it, because like people think, okay, we're all in control of our own lives and stuff like that, and how many people are living here is because it just happens to be that way. But really, from what Cantillon was saying, is that it's more on according to the fashions and tastes of the property owners. Now, I would like to think that we have like a constitution, right? Something that says, okay, you can really step away from government if you really understand what this constitution is, because we are the higher authority, right? And if you walk with protection of the constitution and understand it, you can walk at a higher authority where you are the highest authority. There's nobody above you, right? There's nothing that can touch you. You're like your own little sovereign nation if you truly understand that. It's what the sovereign man, you know, and understanding what that's all about. Anyway, most people don't know that, right? So we live like sheep, we live like cattle, we live under like this ruling elite, right? But this ruling elite isn't even like, you know, Congress or something like that. This elite is like far beyond that. Like, we got Congress to talk to, we got the government, we got our legislators and stuff like that we can converse with, but they're like a shield from the real powers that be, right? And now these people up there, they're the ones who are really making the laws, the decisions, the choices and stuff like that. Now, we think down here at this side that we are, because we're the people, of the people, by the people, you know, all that BS stuff, right? But that's not really the case, because you think about it, like, most people who truly understand the Constitution have abandoned the idea of voting for president, because they understand that these presidents are not constitutional. They don't act or behave or do anything that's constitutional. Never once have we seen one that does. Right? Every time that they allow the Federal Reserve to continue on with their actions, right, they are behaving in an unconstitutional manner. Every war, every engagement like that, these are all unconstitutional stuff. So not anywhere do we find that government behaves within the confines of the Constitution. Besides, it's not up to them to do it. It's up to us to make sure that they are behaving within the confines of the Constitution, and we don't do it. So guess what? Now we have this elite power that's above us, above them, above everything, that now controls the whole thing like they're puppeteers, right? Okay, so anyway, look at the whole, like, Supreme Court, right? Think about, like, some of the things that they are doing right now with, like, say, Roe versus Wade, right? Think about the problems that we are having before with population, and now the problems that we're having today. Like, you know, isn't it strange? Some of the changes to the laws, to the conditionings of society, that we think as people that we are in control of. Like, I mean, I see all these people running around with signs and pickets and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, go fight for your social justice now. You know, I should go. Yeah, anyway, I shouldn't even get into that. But you guys get where I'm getting at, right? And I mean, or kind of see where I'm coming from, you know. Anyway. Case law, Yick Woe versus Hopkins explains how the sovereign is the author of law and not the subject of to it. Read that holdings. Thank you, all nighter. Exactly, right? I mean, once you kind of like, you don't have to deeply understand this stuff. You have to just understand that it's legitimate. Like, this stuff is real. Like, this whole sovereign person is real. It's the real deal, right? But because nobody knows about it, it doesn't exist, right? But it does. It truly does, right? And I know because All Nighter knows. All right, let's see here. It is just as heavy with the weight of lead. All right. How were you introduced to the Cantillon essay? That's a really good question, Juan. Thank you for asking that one. It's starting to get windy outside. I was introduced to the Cantillon essay by, shoot, I cannot remember his name right now, but I was sent just one particular chapter out of the essay. In fact, I think it was one of the either chapter 6 or 7, the increase decrease of money into the state. And those 3 chapters are really good within the essay. But I was sent that particular chapter, and when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Excuse me, guys. Got the hiccups. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And so I was just like, I did a video on that, and then I went back and started reading the whole essay. And yeah, I've read quite a bit of it over and over again, in quite a few of the chapters. Some of them are really good, but those 3, the increase and decrease of money to the state, those are really, really good, because it really explains a lot of the stuff that we see now. It answers a lot of the questions that people have, especially when it comes to, like, where did all the manufacturing go? Like, that's like a really, it really explains that well. The one about the population, increasing, the population of the people in the state, that one's a really good one too. All these things, I mean, all of them. Let's see here. This is what he says. The increase of population can be carried furthest in the countries where the people are content to live the most poorly and to consume the least production of the soil. In countries where all the peasants and laborers are accustomed to eat meat, drink wine, beer, etc., not many inhabitants can be supported. So it's just right there. I mean, it's just in. He goes on to talk about it. Like, men will multiply like mice in a barn if they have unlimited means of substance, right? So, like, if you give a man the capabilities of being able to, like, provide for himself and all kinds of things, like, men want to be providers. It's like instinctually within them to want to do it. They want to, like, go out and get a bunch of stuff and, like, here, look at this, look at what I did, and, like, they don't even want the stuff for themselves. Like, men are content with, like, I mean, the stupid little car, right? I mean, but, like, they really like to go out and gather. Like, it's really fun to watch commercial fishermen. Like, I mean, All Nighter knows this one, right? But it's really fun to watch, like, people who are in the harvest, like in the middle of it, and they're getting their hands on it, and it's like it's not just like a matter of, like, just taking it because you want to take it. It's something that's in you that says you got to get it all. Like, you cannot get enough of it. It's more. It's as much as you get. You're in it right now. You get as much as you possibly can, and there is nothing that you're going to let slip. All of it. You get all of it, right? That's the way you feel about it, and it's strange. Men get that feeling about things, and if you give them that capability of being able to do that, they'll provide for, they'll raise 12 kids. I mean, they'll raise as many, they'll raise 20 kids. It doesn't matter. It's like, as if you can give them the capabilities of doing it. But the moment that it becomes hard, right? The moment that raising kids becomes difficult, paying rent becomes difficult, electricity, food, all the other stuff, clothing, all the things become very hard. And because we cannot, like, share our clothes, we all have to have brand new clothes, shoes fall apart quickly, whatever. These things, like the hand-me-down kind of idea, is not really there. You got to think, like, during the Great Depression, people were, like, reused clothes, made their own clothes, did all that other stuff. They had a bunch of kids, right? But now people are addicted to luxuries, and we don't have a whole lot of kids. And he explains it quite well right there. Yeah. This essay explains everything, right? But you got to really take the essay for what it is. I mean, it's something that is, it's like hundreds of years old. So trying to relate it to a lot of stuff that's happening. I mean, it talks about horses and carts and like, the way that communications are happening. It's just like, man, it's way different nowadays. But you can't like dismiss some of the economic forces that take place, yeah? True, the population peaks when the country is moving from developing to developed status. Yeah. Jumping like grasshoppers when the sun comes out. If U.S. economy tanks, integration might tank too, and now your European birth rates. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every time I walk by a car with a guy inside nowadays, I hope it's the Uneducated Economist. Alright. Thanks for the stream, you. Yeah, hey, no problem. Thanks you all for being here. We got 453 of you with 263 likes. Go hit that like button. We'll get more people up in here. The YouTube algorithm will pick up the video and start sending it around more. Don't invest in fake articles, artificial things like dollar, digital currencies, etc. Invest in what you can see, gold and real world assets. Remember what they were after. Easter Sunday Easter Sunday he has risen 2,000 years ago from turning the tablets in the temple, or turning the tables in the temple. So yeah, that was another interesting story too. Like I'm not big into biblical history. My wife is. She's really good. Like I love asking her questions about the Bible because she'll be like, she just knows. It's really fun. And if she doesn't, she'll be like, oh, hold on one second. She was like, okay, that's what I thought. And then she just really knows like a lot about the history, and she will listen to a lot of like history stuff on biblical. But she's not religious either. Like she was growing up, but she doesn't go to church anymore, or we don't go to church and stuff like that. But it's funny to listen to some of the stories, like especially that one about Jesus flipping over them tables, because I was just like, okay, so now tell me about this, right? And because like me just being like the one who's just like, okay, completely ignorant towards this, tell me the story, right? So Jesus shows up here and he starts flipping these tables over. Why? Because these people, what were they doing? And she was just like, well, you had to come and get these special tokens from them. And I was like, special tokens? Is that right? Am I getting the story right? She didn't really go into explaining it. I kind of just made it up. But basically, like, Jesus shows up because these guys are like, hey, you want to go in here and pray, you got to have these coins, right? You can't use those coins. You got to use these coins in order to go up here and do your worshiping. And so I got to thinking about that. It was just like, wow, that happens today, right? I mean, you think about it on a lot of scales, like just the idea that you can't use that money, you have to use this money. Right? It's very interesting to think about. I don't want to go too deep into it because I really don't know the story that well. But I just thought that was funny. Can't use that money, you have to use this money. All right, Jesus did not like the FX market in the church. Yeah, that's true. All right. Hello from Germany. Can you talk about what you think from Germany's economy now? Do you see what happened? To be honest with you, I am not that focused in over there on Europe and what's going on over there. I'm really just kind of really focused in on the monetary policies coming from the Federal Reserve. I mean, I'm listening to people, and I think they really kind of misunderstand what the Fed's strategy is. Like a lot of people think that the Federal Reserve, I don't know, like I'm not sure what it is. Like there was a time that I used to think that there was like a good economy, bad economy. Like I used to think that way. I used to think there's a good economy, bad economy, right? Like either the economy is operating good or it's operating bad. I don't see it that way anymore. I don't even see like good or bad operation happening. I just see it as is. It's just this is what's happening, right? And the Federal Reserve, people get angry with the Federal Reserve and they blame the Federal Reserve, because the economy is not operating in a fashion in which that they are approving of, because they're not happy with it, right? So they've, like, put their expectations on this outcome. And because they don't understand the Fed strategy, they don't understand, what it is that they want the Fed to conduct themselves in a way that is appropriate for the decisions that they have made, right? Like, I made this decision, you need to act appropriately for my decisions to be appropriate for myself, right? I mean, this is like, you see how this isn't going to work, So this is how a lot of people end up getting frustrated and mad at the Fed. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we should end the Fed. In fact, hey, look, I'm still wearing my shirt. Remember? End the Fed? Like, this is the one my family got me. All right, so I'm not cool with the Fed, but the thing is that I'm not scared of the Fed either. I'm not like, thinking they're going to come down and ruin my entire life. I don't look at it like that. I look at the Federal Reserve as just another part of the economy out there, and what the real economic powers that are taking place from, like, things like the Cantillon effect, those are the things to watch for. I mean, what's happening right now with the money, as far as the new money coming in and the issuance of debt, I mean, this isn't like, I know the BRICS nations and all that other stuff are going to be very damaging, but you have to think about the scale in which that the United States dollar is operating right now. It's huge. It's like intensely huge. And yeah, is that going to last forever? No, of course not. And when it does fail, it's going to be horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible, right? But that's not happening tomorrow, right? And if you look at about how it is going to end, it's not just going to be like, okay, see you later, United States. Nice knowing you, right? Do you think they're going to be like, oh gosh, well, I guess our reign is over. Turn off the lights. No. It's going to be war. It's going to be intense war, and lots of it. Right? So don't get excited for the BRICS nations. Like, I wouldn't be participating in the excitement of that. Like, perpetuating that excitement is going to lead you straight into battle, right? And so, I mean, if it happens, it happens. I mean, what am I going to do to control it? I'm just saying that's what I see taking place. If we are to lose the dollar, the world reserve currency status, we are going to see hell to pay. I mean, because, or else, you just, like, I mean, how many people are just going to sit there and take it? That's all I guess I'm getting at. It was just like, so you're just going to sit there in a chair and watch everything around you get taken away from you, and you're not going to do anything about that, right? I mean, is that really what's going to end up happening? Because that's really what one would have to say. No, what you're going to do is you're going to get up and you're going to fight, and you're going to keep people from taking your stuff, or you're going to force them into making sure that you do business the way, like, I'm going to take all your shit. Like, that's the way it goes down, right? And after the war is over, everybody fails and everybody's into poverty. It sucks. So just hope that people keep borrowing our debt, and we keep going into debt, I guess. I mean, I don't know if you should hope for that, but either way. Okay. It's gonna happen. It's inevitable either way. Dollar is going to fail on its own, war or not. Yeah, I know it's going to fail. What I'm going to say is that, what is the reaction of the people? What is the reaction of the state when you cannot get people to borrow your money anymore? You take a gun to them and you say, I'm going to take your shit if you don't borrow my money. If you don't let me any of your money, I'm just going to take it. Right? That's what ends up happening. And so this is what we get to we get to look forward to. Yay, I'm not really interested in that, but whatever. Maybe our country has gone the way of the very people we sought sovereignty from. Okay, so there's got to be a change. They have nice cars. Enjoy the ride. We're only here for 84 years. They have valuables. Let's see. What's the agenda? No more hydrocarbons, fewer births. How do you accomplish that? Higher interest rates. All right. It's justified to ice them. I feel like Fed now will be introduced with stimulus. I mean, well, it's hard to say. I mean, why are they timing it for July? Like, I did a little bit of reporting on the Fed now when it was like first being, not really necessarily first being talked about, but I first started talking about it was a couple of years ago, knowing that eventually this Fed Now digital payment system thing was going to start taking place. And it wasn't a secret. I mean, it wasn't like it just got introduced the other month. I mean, we talked about it here on this channel a couple of years ago. Um, so it's been planned. I mean, this was something that they were talking about a while ago. You know, a lot of people don't realize, like, towards the end of 2019, there was a lot of stuff taking place in the banking system, the central banking system. They were getting prepared for a major downturn. They were getting prepared for the recession. They knew it was going to be hitting. Now, nobody could really say, hey, it's okay. We're going to go into this recession having to deal with COVID, right? And by having COVID, we're going to have all these other reasons that we are going to be able to stimulate the economy because of the COVID excuse. So, you know, no worries. Like, they couldn't say that in 2019. So all the stuff, all the chatter coming towards the end of 2019 was quite intense. I mean, it was like, you know, everybody was flipping out. They were talking about inverted yield curves and all kinds of stuff. And then, boom, COVID hits, and they said the COVID-induced recession, and then everybody forgot about it, right? And I'm like, you know, I mean, Peter Schiff was lit up all over about it right at the beginning. You know, it was just like, you can't shoot yourself in the foot and then say that, you know, it was COVID that did it. You know, it was just like, you know, it was like, or how did he say it? Like, you can't be sick and then or have like a gunshot wound or something and then get COVID and then blame like the illness on COVID when really you have a gunshot wound or something like that. I forget exactly how he was describing it, but that's really what it comes down to, is that we were already in recession, but because we had this COVID thing going on, we had all the reasons in the world to fight COVID. And by using the reasons in the world to fight COVID, it was the stimulus package that the Federal Reserve needed in order to stimulate the economy. I mean, they said it in 2019. This is going to take fiscal stimulus, right? It's not going to take monetary stimulus or monetary policy stimulus. It's going to take fiscal policy stimulus. How do you get fiscal policy to do it? How are you going to get the government to go out there and spend all this damn money all of a sudden? Like, do this huge, you know, bailout system. Oh, COVID. Interesting. Yeah, that. I mean, I don't know how you guys knew that in 2019, you know, early on in 2019, 18, 19, because that's when they were saying it. But, you know, there it was, right? And then how else were you going to bail out all these corporations without the special purpose vehicles that they were able to use because of the unusual and exigent circumstances of the COVID situation? Again, like, you know, how all that stuff, how it is that could accidentally happen is beyond me. Like, that was definitely planned. Like, you couldn't snap that into existence and just say, hey, I got this great idea to deal with COVID right now, since it's all of a sudden just happening. You know, it doesn't work like that. It can't. So those special purpose vehicles were set up to bail out the corporations. And, like, you know, the other parts of it too, you know, to give out the payroll protection program and stuff like that. That was the guys. That's what everybody looked at. That was the news coverage. But really, the bigger news, because, like, you know, you think about it, like right now, the way the Federal Reserve is really able to get inflation to be broad, because you have to inject money in all channels at once in order to get inflation to be like sustainable and, you know, that sticky inflation that they talk about and stuff, in order to be sustainable. Otherwise, inflation is very quick. When they did the money injection, the quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, that was loading up the bank's balance sheet with a whole bunch of reserves, right? It was just like, here, you got all this money. Go lend it out. Like, lend it out at low interest rates to as many people as you possibly can. And that was what quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 did. So it, like, shot up prices of assets and houses and cars and different things like that. But, like, the real inflation, like the stuff that the Federal Reserve was looking for as far as the inflation that they were wanting to calculate, even though it's not necessarily the same inflation that we had studied back in the day. But the inflation that they were looking for, it missed the mark. They couldn't really get that inflation that they were looking for. They hit it a couple of times, but they missed it because that money wasn't getting injected at all channels at the same time. That's what made this one so much different, right? All the money got injected to everybody at the same time, and they said, go spend it. Everybody at once, right now. Get out there and spend all this money. And by the way, nobody to distribute anything. Let's see what happens to the inventory. Boom, gone, right? Now what happens to prices? Go up. Now, here's the problem that they're facing is the employment, right? During the COVID, they had this situation where the bankruptcies of corporations were going to start taking place. And they were like, okay, well, we can't have corporations failing because of the COVID situation. We're going to save the fallen angels, right? Remember this? So they set up the special purpose vehicle. With the special purpose vehicle, they funded it with hundreds of billions of dollars and then put the news out there. Hey, we're going to be buying up corporate debt, right? So they bought a little bit of this corporate debt. They established the credible threat, and then people went out there and went, holy moly, the Federal Reserve is buying corporate debt. They're picking the winners and losers. They started going out and front running. So the market started front running the Federal Reserve. They bought up a bunch of this corporate debt. Now these corporations started gorging on all this money, right? Because all the market was going in there thinking that they were front running the Federal Reserve. So now the corporations have access to all the cash they want. Right? So they're loading up on cash as much as they can. And now these are the zombie corporations too, because as the interest rates are falling, right? As the yields are falling during this time, everybody's buying up on these bonds. The bond prices are going up, the yields are falling. Corporations are gorging on the cash. The people are like looking for yield anywhere. They're like, man, we're looking for any kind of fixed income, and they're finding it over here in these junk bonds. So they're buying up the damn zombie corporations. So as the zombie corporations are loading up on this cash, they're like, oh yeah, what do we do? All right, well, start expanding operations, buy equipment, buy buildings, hire people, right? And so all of a sudden you have all these people who are flooding up into these corporate jobs, right? Now you can't find anybody to serve a burger because they're all going to work for these corporations that shouldn't really be there. They shouldn't have got this money and they shouldn't have expanded. But now you got employment doing what? All right, you got unemployment falling, and you have like the available jobs like are just dramatically out there. So you got this labor market that's incredibly tight, and now you got wages that are increasing. Well, now with wages increasing, it does two things. Not only does it cause the price of all the stuff out there to go up because this is more input cost going into all the items out there, but then it also increases consumption. And now this is something where I think a lot of people misunderstand it because they think like, they don't really think about the consumption part of things. They only look at demand, right? But we're talking about demand versus consumption. You think about it. How many cars do you demand? How much do you actually consume? Things that you consume on a regular basis, the necessities of life. So as more people are earning more money, they're consuming more things. They're eating 2 steaks, not 1, right? So as they consume more, the demand for this stuff comes up as people are like, hey man, I want to eat a steak too, right? But that guy's eating too because he earns more money. Now the prices start to go up. And this is really where the Federal Reserve is finding the inflation being more sticky, is because we can't seem to get the unemployment numbers to come up, right? Once the unemployment starts to rise, people are actually losing their jobs, going from the corporations, getting laid off there, going back to the service jobs where they're flipping burgers or doing something like that, where they're barely making a living any longer, and they're not spending extra income, and they're not eating a steak, they're actually eating ramen, I mean, and then you're going to find inflation is no longer sticky, but actually going the opposite way. So right now, that's not the situation, right? I mean, we still got, a lot of, really low unemployment numbers, and we have, even though layoffs are increasing, we still have high jobs numbers. So, yeah, inflation to continue, I don't know. All right, I get some more super chats right on. You guys are so generous. Let me go find that. Right on, the infamous NYC. Thank you so much for the $5. It's funny listening to Fauci. How do you say that name? I don't even know. Say in 2017 how Trump would deal with global virus and no one asked anything. Yeah. I remember when Trump said there was no inflation and the Federal Reserve should be printing money. Remember that? I'm sorry, I don't mean to bring that up. There's a lot of Trump fans out here. I'm a Trump fan. Actually, I would love to meet Donald Trump. I really would. I would love to meet anybody out there. I would love to shake hands with just about any, not anybody, but Trump is definitely somebody I would love to meet. And I remember like talking with, because a lot of you know that I met Robert Kiyosaki, and I sat down and had lunch. Well, we were having lunch, and we were just kind of talking about just different things. And he talked about Trump like behind the scenes, and he was like actually really impressed with the way that Trump, because Robert said something about like they were going out to speak in front of like a huge group. It was like 20,000 people or some ridiculous amount of people, right? And they're about ready to go out and speak in front of all these people. And Robert said something about the little people, and Trump turned around and chewed Robert Kiyosaki out. And he was like, "Don't you ever call anybody little," you know? And so like Robert was, he said he was somewhat embarrassed by it. You know, it was like, Jesus, you know, here's Donald Trump chewing him out in front of all these people. And he said that Donald Trump always treated all the staff and everybody around him with a lot of respect and like you know, like was very courteous around him and everything else. And it's really weird because you think about like this persona that he has out there of being like this really kind of like arrogant, you know, a-hole, you know, whatever kind of thing. But really, when you hear like some of the people who know him personally, they're like, that's not the way it goes down. So I would love to meet him personally to see if I could, you know, see that character in him. Thank you very much, Lindy, for the 1999. Very cool of you. Bring value to others through your own channel, teaching, entertaining stuff. UE does as it's you and you're valuable. Then support others. Thank you. Teaching, entertaining. Stuff UE does as it is. You and you're valuable. Thank you. That's very cool of you. I really appreciate the support. You know, you guys are always so very supportive of the channel. And, you know, it's like, I remember when I started this channel off, I didn't think anybody would ever follow it. And it was cool because, I did a couple of videos talking about, like, the housing market. And I got some attention for that. And, you know, people were like, hey, I really like your view of like the housing market incorporated with the building materials. For a lot of you who don't know, I work at a lumber yard. I do retail sales for I do retail sales for a living at a hardware store, selling lumber and building supplies and stuff like that. And when I incorporated these two thoughts together, you know, talking about the building supply, what I'm seeing going on there with the prices and the inventory levels and stuff, and incorporated that to the housing market, that's really what got me a lot of attention here on YouTube. And so when I say a lot of attention, I mean I went from like 10 subscribers to like 100, you know. And I was like, when I got to 100 subscribers, I was like, whoa, this channel's huge. Like, this is huge. This is like really big for me. I don't know if I can handle this. This is a lot, you know. And then I had a video get 1,000 views, and I thought, that's way too many. I can't have that many people watching me, you know, and stuff. Channel just crossed 120,000 subscribers. You know, I never ever thought I would have anything like this, ever. I mean, so, you know, to have Miss Lindy send me $20 and thank me for being out here, I cannot thank you enough for being here. You know, all 120,000 of you who have hit that subscribe button, I mean, you know, you changed my life. You really did. And I cannot thank you enough. I mean, the amount of things that have happened, being invited to go meet Robert Kiyosaki, to go meet all of them, Mark Moss and, you know, Lynette Zhang and Brent Johnson and like Doug Casey. I got to meet Doug Casey. He was cool. Doug Casey's like, he's very quiet. He sat there in the chair. He was watching the big screen, and I was like, okay, I gotta go sit down and meet Doug. So I sat down, and he looked at me, and I handed him one of my cards, and I said, hey, Doug, it's really nice to meet you. My name is Simon. I host this channel, The Uneducated Economist. And he went, yeah. And so I was just like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. I've been following you for years. You were very instrumental in the first years of me like getting into economics and trying to understand what was going on in the economy. And so I just really wanted to thank you for all the work you've done. And he just looked at me and just thanked me, you know, and we just kind of chatted a little bit about just like, you know, the event and stuff like that. Didn't talk about economics or anything else. And that was cool. So I got to meet Doug Casey, which was something I really wanted to do in my life. And you guys helped me do that by being here, you know. All right. Why won't Fed let us go into deflation? Because deflation is far more painful than inflation. And you're gonna see it. You'll see it happening here. You're gonna find that people will be crying their eyes out. They will be talking about everything, how they've lost everything in their life, and how it was all the government and the Fed's fault and all this other stuff. And people are just gonna be just pissed during that time. Now, those who are understanding of the system, those who are savers, those who understand that they're, need multiple streams of income, that during down times and hard times that you have to figure out ways of being able to, generate income that are not typical of what you are experiencing during the good times. So people who are understanding of that, it's not going to be painful. It's going to be a pleasant time. In fact, they're going to prosper during that. But most people don't do that. Like, most people are accustomed to ever expanding debt issuance and ever increasing asset prices. They don't know how to live in a world that has like ever increasing interest rates. Like, they like can't fathom the idea. Like, they haven't thought that through, like what their life would be like if that would be the case, where asset prices don't go up, where you can't just flip houses. I mean, like, people have a hard time understanding that because they have grown up with this sort of like attitude that you just wait till the time in which that you can do this again. Well, what if you can't do it again? What if you go through a decade where the interest rates don't go up or don't go down? What if they just keep steady? Like, how do you handle that sort of situation? I'm not saying that is, but how do you handle that? Like, can you? Like, have you thought about that? Most people don't. They think, okay, it's either one way or the other, right? And so how do you like deal with an increasing interest rates? Well, you got to be a saver. You got to be, somebody who has low debts. You got to be somebody who has multiple streams of income so that you can deal with one getting turned off by, a cutback in spending or something like that, right? What do you do when interest rates go down? Well, you buy houses and you flip them because people are going to be ever increasing it, be able to be making payments on higher asset prices. So you can just flip houses as interest rates go down. These type of scenarios are fairly typical of the mindset, but are they very typical of what an economy should look like on a regular basis? Like, is that going to be the case going over the next 10 years? I don't think it will be. I think things are going to look very different as we transition into a digital currency, as we transition into tokenizing. These transitions are not going to be like a smooth functioning of just like, hey, we have this way of conducting ourselves throughout the economy, and we're just going to be able to transition right into the new system doing that exact same thing. You're going to find that it's going to be quite different. I mean, even just today, I mean, think about it. Like, I was talking to my wife. We earned at one time in our lives, like, I remember she was making $4.50 an hour and I was making $4.75. Like, $4.50 an hour and $4.75 an hour. And I think we're not even really that old. Like, I'm 46 years old. And now what I earn is like, 5 times that much. I mean, I don't even know exactly. Like, it's not that much, but well, maybe. Yeah. So, anyhow, I mean, the amount is just quite incredible. But it's not just that. It's also the availability of being able to earn money, right? So now, like, having YouTube, being able to, like, I mean, even like my friend is doing DoorDash. It's just like, being able to just like open up an app and make money off of it, like right now. The availability of money, it flies everywhere, and you can just go out there and just take it whenever you want if you understand how those systems work. So right now, it's an awesome time to be out there trying. I mean, I I think about it, like, opportunity is everywhere. I see everybody who's like, man, there's no opportunity for anybody. I was like, man, there's like everywhere. There's everywhere I look, there's opportunity. It's just the hardest part about it is being like sticking to it and going forth with ideas and stuff like that, or being committed to those ideas. That's what's really the hard part about it. But as far as like the end game, as far as the dollar goes, that's going to be very difficult to deal with. You have to protect yourself with gold and silver and cryptos and guns and bullets and canning supplies. Robert is Cringe prophet. Yeah, if you met Robert, like Robert's a nice guy. He's pretty cool. I saw him up on stage and I'm thinking, whoa, man, this guy is quite aggressive, whatever. And then hanging out with him in the green room, total chill dude. Way, way cool. Yeah. If you can pursue any degree, what degree would it be? I don't know. I mean, I would have to get a degree in economics, I guess. I mean, what else would I want? Like, I don't want a degree in anything. Like, what would I do with the degree? I mean, unless you plan on doing something with it, what will be the point? I mean, I people are like, well, you can use your degree to earn money with. Like, well, doing what? Like, I mean, I work at a lumber yard and I do YouTube videos and I do pretty good doing that. Like, that's a pretty simple life. Like, people ask me, how come you don't, like, I even asked myself, it was just like, is the channel stagnant? Could I be doing more? Like, could I be out there doing more with my life, with this channel, with this knowledge, with stuff like that? And I have to also question myself, it's just like, you do have a family here you have to hang out with, right? you know I mean, you can't just go and like dedicate your entire thing to this YouTube channel and to economics in the pursuit of like expanding this thing. You do have a family to look out for, and with what I'm doing with my day job and what I got going on with YouTube and then the side hustle of calling bingo and stuff like that, I mean, it's pretty decent. So again, I have to ask myself, what would I do with the degree other than just have it? Like, I could hang it on the wall and point at it and say, look what I got. But do I really need that in my life? I mean, I guess it would be kind of cool to have. I mean, just to say I've done it. But I don't know how that would benefit me. I guess is what I would have to question in that. You know. Um, so I don't know. I don't want a degree. Peaceful flower children no more precious. Let's see here. Money in the bank is dangerous. Gaslighting much. Yeah, it is dangerous. Okay, so people asked me that very thing like months ago, like years ago. They asked me all the time, would you keep your money in the bank? And I say, yeah. Should I? Probably not. I mean, I say that just like that every single time. Like, people ask me, do I keep my money in the bank? Yes. Are you worried? No. Should I be? Yes. Like, I mean, I have never changed my stance on that whole position, right? And what did we experience with SBV, right? They were like, oh man, nobody's going to get their deposits. But then you know what? Everybody, including the ones beyond the $250,000, are going to get covered, right? So should you be worried? Yes. Did you need to be? No, right? And that's what's scary about it is that I am not fond of any of this stuff, right? But when I look at what the Federal Reserve has for their strategy, and I've said this before, like I've looked at it like this, people are like, what's your strategy here? And I'm like, I'm gonna use the lifeboat. And they're like, that's your strategy to use the lifeboat. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. I plan on using this lifeboat right here. It's just like, because that's lifeboat is now a useful tool, and it's going to be the tool, right? And it's not going to be like a lifeboat or emergency boat. It's just going to be this useful tool that we use now. All right. And that's exactly the way I see the Federal Reserve with just about all their stuff. I mean, the repo facility, the standing repo facility before, 2019, before September of 2019, it was an emergency facility. It was an emergency, tool thing, the thing that they had in their toolbox. They only used it as like a pressure relief. It wasn't meant to be a standing facility. But now it's a standing facility. Like I said, it was an emergency tool, but now it's just this useful tool that they have and nobody questions it anymore. It was just like, this is what the Fed does. They come up with these creative ways of like, hey, we got this way of dealing with this problem that's going to come, and then we'll just make this like little tool that's like, needed to be added in, and we'll just make that permanent until the next crisis comes, and then we'll tweak it and figure it out some more. Like, I'm not happy with that idea, but that seems to be what they do. So, I think they're going to do that again. All right. An army made for the doom of men. Thumbs up. Thanks for sharing. Hey, thank you, no name. All right, Yui, can you define woman? Oh gosh, yeah. All the females that I hang out with are all women. All right. And the black gates of Angbad shall look over new plane of. Okay, I don't know that one. Congrats, people love normal people. Well, yeah, thank you. And that, well, that's just the truth, and I've tried to encourage so many people to start a YouTube channel, like a lot of people. I was just, I get out there and people say, "Hey, man, I just realized you had a YouTube channel." They say like, "I want to start one." I'm like, "Do it, man. Let's do it. Let's get the videos out there. Make it happen." Oh, I'm not like you. I can't do that. And I'm like, "Yeah, you can, man." Like, I started my channel with a used iPhone 6 and I borrowed Wi-Fi, right? To upload videos. So when somebody says they can't do it, I mean that's not right. That's absolutely not right. You might be nervous about it. It might feel unfamiliar and weird and uncomfortable and all that other stuff. But eventually, if you just keep putting videos out there and keep trying, eventually you become a YouTuber. I mean, especially if you are trying to put out quality video and trying to be like entertaining and do all that other stuff, helpful. That's the thing. If you're putting out useful, helpful, creative stuff like that, the universe is just going to be there for you. They're going to be like the universe wants that. They want useful, helpful information and entertaining. That's what it is. Yeah, love the work you do. Well, thank you very much, Alex. That's because you're genuinely a great guy. Well, thank you, Lindy. Alright. What is Stormy's talent? Entertainment. That's I don't understand why that would be a question. You know? I mean, is it us to judge that? I mean, that you can judge it if you want. All I'm saying is just like money is made. Like Andrew Tate said it best, right? He was just like money is made if you have information and attention, right? And you think about that is so true. Information and attention, Hollywood, politics, education, you know, anything like church, whatever. I mean, it's just like anything you can think of. It's just like all of it is information, right? And information and attention means that you can get money. It's sales, like information, attention. Uneducated economist for president. You know, I don't. What would I do as president, man? Like, I couldn't possibly be president because I wouldn't be able to. I couldn't possibly be president because I couldn't consciously like say, okay, I'm going to continue voting for things that I know are not right, right? That I know are unconstitutional because I just wouldn't be able to do that, right? And by being president, that means that the whole nation would begin to fall and collapse because of the way that the system is now structured. So being president would mean that I would have to go against my actual beliefs in order to continue the functioning of the United States the way it is. Now, if you really wanted me to like run for president to bring attention to a particular movement, that sounds kind of fun. Like that sounds kind of fun. Like not really intending on being president because I really wouldn't want to do that, but I would love to bring some attention to things. Like I have great ideas for bringing attention, but sometimes I don't know if I really want to do it. Let's see. Did I get another super chat down there I'm missing? Yeah, I did. Joe Troll, thank you very much for the $10. Keep grinding it out, Yui. You have completely opened my mind about economics and are helping me grow in a unique way. Please do not stop. Lots of love from a finance bro. Well, thank you, Joe, man. Thank you for the $10. That is really nice of you. Very, 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 very cool of you. Thank you for the support on that. I'm sorry, I just kind of got lost here. I was looking at something else. That's really what this is all about, man, is just growing and trying to figure out this stuff for ourselves. Um, A lot of times people ask me, I was just like, well, what's next step for the channel? And I just don't know. Like, I would love to do speaking engagements, but like we were just talking, I mean, is that something? Because like I would feel that that would pull me away from like my boys active in sports and doing things. So like we're always doing something almost every day after school, and just putting out like a 10-minute video, I have to like knock it out in between lunches or first thing in the morning or something. And so like even trying to keep up on the YouTube channel with just putting videos out, I do that in between like like all the rest of my life that I got going on. Same thing with like reading articles. I do it first thing in the morning before anybody's up. I try and read as much articles as I can. So what is it that I really need to do for this channel? And I thought about it. It was just like I would love to become or get to people. How am I trying to say this? I would love to get to a place in which that I could get people to become economically aware. Like to be able to like either provide courses or even do like one-on-one consultations or do something in that fashion, because I think that a lot of people really are like this close to getting it. Like they're like right there at the very edge, and it's almost as if they need like that. I forget what they call it. It's like this epiphany moment, like where they this like aha thing. Like they're like, oh, okay, wait a minute, that's it. I finally get it now. The flow of money going through. This is why you have this rise, fall, whatever. And sometimes it just takes like a discussion or having like a few questions that you like that are just not, you can't seem to find the answer to them, and you just need it explained out. And to me, like this seems like really where like I would do quite well. Like this is how I really feel like I get into flow state and stuff like that, is when I start explaining things out in that fashion. So sometimes I wonder if that's really where I should like kind of gear the channel towards, is like being more like course driven or do like consultation kind of thing, where it's just like maybe like smaller group discussions or just one-on-one discussions or something like that. Anyway, it's all about becoming economically aware, because we have to make these decisions for ourselves, and that's really where I think this channel is tried to push that kind of idea. And I know a lot of you have come, have like just like the comments here, a lot of people have sent me emails, have come to me personally and said just that. It's just like, dude, your videos, your channel, everything you talk about has completely changed my life. And the reason why it's changed your life is because it's changed mine, right? I mean, by following me in the changing of my life and seeing these things, like this is me becoming aware and understanding this for the first time a lot of times too. And that's why it seems so exciting. Like a lot of times people will hear it and they'll be like, holy moly, you've known this for years. And it's like, well, not really. I mean, I've just studying this stuff just like everybody else. You go back to my earlier videos and I watch some of them and I kind of laugh at myself and I'm like, man, I can't believe some of the things I said. But I'm not going to delete anything that I've ever done. Never will I ever delete anything I've ever done, because all that stuff is important, because it's all like the growing that we've done, the understanding that we've had. I loved when interest rates were really low. And I was telling people, when the Fed goes to raise interest rates, and I like going back to some of those videos and reading some of the comments of people calling me a moron and telling me how I knew nothing of the Federal Reserve and stuff. And I'm like, man, I don't go back and like, comment on them or anything like that. I just go back and read some of these things. And that's really what gets me to stick to my guns. That's what really gets me to think like, okay, the things that I've learned, the understanding that I have taken on, what I believe is I'm holding to it. I don't care what any other economist says out there. I don't care how many degrees or how smart they are or how many TV interviews they've ever done. When it comes to like, say, talking about the lumber industry, I will go toe to toe with anyone. I do not care who they are. Like, I really don't. And I will talk lumber up, down, sideways, whatever. And I know that if it came down to a debate, I would win. I know I would. I mean, because there's no way that I have not taken in all the information when it comes to lumber. I have talked to too many people, too many angles, too many people who are directly inside the industry from every single angle, right? From people who are working the woods, from the people who do the estimates of the trees, to the loggers, to the truck drivers, to the mill operators, to the wholesalers, to people who do the reporting on mills, Madison, like Keta from Madison's Lumber Report, like everywhere. Like there's nothing that I haven't covered. And so if there is an economist out there who wants to debate lumber with me, I would love to do that, man, because I haven't ever done a debate, and that would be fun. Let's move on. How did I get? Good coffee, yeah. All right. Wow, look at all these comments. You guys are commenting so much. That's so awesome. All right. Two-time national lumber debate winner, UE. Yeah. I mean, well, I just it was, to me, it was a little different because of the position I was in. Like I wasn't looking to make money off of a lumber trade, right? I wasn't trying to like put like I wasn't investing in lumber or anything like that. I do retail sales, so I had direct insight to it. I had first-hand knowledge in a lot of different directions. And so when I'm trying to come up with video content, I was doing a lot of research, like just to try and come up with video content. So that's why like I was able to get as much knowledge as I did, is just simply because of the YouTube channel and why I was trying to do it, Jeez, I gotta slow down on the coffee. All right, let's see here. Never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot. Richard P. Feynman? You won't stand up to Peter Schiff about Bitcoin, though. I am not going to debate Peter Schiff on anything like that. Like, I do not want my ass handed. Actually, I would, just for the fun of it. But I know, like, I would go in anticipating I would get my ass handed to me. Like, that's the way it would go down. Like, there is no way that I would be able to combat the amount of knowledge and insight and stuff that he has. Like, I just wouldn't be able to compare. I mean, it's just that I just can't. In fact, it was funny because the very first time, Peter Schiff had actually commented on my channel when I only had like maybe 5,000 subscribers. It was one of the coolest things that I think had ever happened to me at the time. It was before I met George Gammon even. And I said something about the money supply and the expanding of the money supply, and he corrected me on it. He said, "Hey, you had a great idea going here," because I was talking about digital currencies. I forget exactly what the comment was. He says, "You got a great idea, or I like your insight into that, or your thoughts on this, but you're wrong about the money expansion." And then he kind of went on and talked about it. And I was like, "Holy crap!" Peter Schiff commented on my channel. Then later on, I got to actually talk to him. So. Because, I mean, I did actually do an interview with Peter Schiff on my channel here. It was about 2 months ago. Yui, why can't our economic system take better care of Mother Nature? Because this is not the way it works, man. I mean, that's an individual choice. That's not like, I mean, I guess you could like try and create a society that's going to take care of Mother Nature, but you got to understand, like, capitalism is a very strange thing, right? And in the sense that you can look at it as a very awesome thing. Like, I look at capitalism as the most efficient way of producing the highest quality of products and delivering them to the people at the best possible prices. There is no better way of excelling your life other than in a capitalist society, right? That's the way I feel. A lot of people feel differently about that. Now, another way you can look at capitalism is taking natural resources and converting them to garbage as fast as possible, right? That's another way. You can say it just like that. So, however you choose to look at it. You got a great shtick. And your bias is universal. Keep being that guy. What tools would you suggest to abate the death throes of the Fed? Okay, so I mean, that's going to be difficult. Like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's 3 places that you have to be when it comes to the collapse of the dollar system: cash, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies. That's it. Like, that's the only places you can be. Other than that, you're going to have like your natural, or not your natural, but the immediate, like, material things within your possessions, right? And that, to me, like, the most important thing would be canning supplies. Like, so those are my, like, my four go-tos, right? Is cash, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, and canning supplies. Now, a lot of people will store up just on food. That's cool. But then if you have to bail out, you have to go somewhere or whatever, then having a bunch of food means you have to transport a bunch of food and you have to preserve the food and you have to deal with that. Um, Especially when it comes to, like, preserving meat. If you're freezing it, then you have to deal with the electricity and freezing, keeping it frozen and stuff. Meat, canned meat, or freeze dryer. Like, a lot of people talk about freeze drying meat, or dehydrating or whatever. But canning meat is, for one, it's a lot of fun if you just get into the hobby of doing it. But it is one of the easiest ways of preserving meat for a long time, right? So you can get years out of it. And when you're in, like, a crisis situation in which, like, shortages are coming up, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be shortages of, like, things, right? Of everything at once. How am I trying to explain this? You're going to find that there's going to be abundance of some things and shortages of others, right? But how many, like, somebody comes up and it was just like, dude, I got 200 pounds of carrots, right? It was just like, what are you going to do with 200 pounds of carrots? You're going to eat as many carrots as you can, right? So you got to be able to preserve those carrots. You got to know how to be able to preserve carrots. And that's really where having the canning skill comes in, because then you have, like, your abundance you can preserve, and you have to go out there and find those abundant things, because you know that you're not going to always be able to have access to beef. But one day somebody, says, hey, you come over and help me butcher this cow and I'll give you a quarter of it, right? Well, right on, right? Now you have a quarter of a cow, but you have no way of preserving it. What are you going to do? Right now, learning to can, now you have a way of preserving it. These are the type of skills that you would have to have during those times, because like I said, like, here in the Pacific Northwest, we actually have quite a bit of abundance of food, right? The whole place is very naturally abundant with it. So being able to access food here is pretty easy if you know what you're doing. Preserving it, like, really seals the deal. So we're already naturally in an abundant resource, naturally food resource area. And if you have that skill, that's pretty cool, right? A lot of people, like, just think about, like, some of the things you need to do in life in general. Think about, like, this. Even without a collapse, just conducting yourself, right? You're a young man trying to figure it out. Like, it's just like, man, I don't know. I don't have any skills. I don't have anything going on. I got a place to live, but I'm hungry, right? What do I do? Well, you can go and try and figure out how it is that you can earn money to buy food, or you go to work for a restaurant, right? You Guess what? You go to a restaurant and generally you're going to eat. Like, I mean, it's just the way it kind of works. And so if you have a place to be, then yeah, go to work for a restaurant. Now you got food. Now you don't have to worry about that part of it. Not worrying about food relieves a whole lot of stress, right? Eat a lot of food first thing in the morning. You're going to find your stress level is way less throughout the day. A lot of people say, I can't eat breakfast or whatever. Just eat, regardless if you're hungry or not. Because think about it, like, primitively, right? You're a caveman, right? Your every day is survival. The very first thing you need is food, right? You need food to survive. If you're able to take care of that thing, instinctually, man, it's going to be a good day, right? So eat a lot of food first thing in the morning. If you need a car, go to work for a dealership. Go to work for a car dealership doing car detail. Like, you're a young man. You can't really do sales yet. You haven't figured that part out. Go to work for a car dealer doing washing cars or something. And then, just say, hey, next decent used car that comes in, make me a deal on it or something like that. And then, find the best deal for a car working that. Same thing working for a lumberyard. You want to build a house, go to work for a lumberyard. You'll get, like, go to work for a local lumber yard, and, work there for a couple of years to do this. I mean, don't go there and just do it for a couple of months, build your house, and then bail. They'll probably get mad at you. Well, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but, I've seen people do this. I've seen people go to work for the lumber yard, work for them for a couple of years, build a house, remodel the house, do everything that they needed to do for this thing, get really killer deals on everything as far as the doors and the fixtures and windows and, all the paint and everything that goes into it. And then once the house is all done and remodeled and sold, they bail. They move, right? They bail out of there. I've seen that happen number of times, and they do it for insurance too. I saw a lady who was basically, she was self-employed. She did, like, her, I don't know, she sold art or something, but she came to work for the lumber yard so that, or I mean, she was working, like, kind of the design area, But she really did it for the health insurance, took care of, like, I don't know, she had like some cancer spot on her back or something she needed removed. I forget what it was. I don't mean to be into like intrusive into her personal stuff, but anyway, she just, she used the health insurance and bailed out. There's a lot of ways that, you can just use the different, I don't know, there's all kinds of creative ways. Whatever you need in life, just go to work for them and then take it and then, bail out and go do something else. You need a car, go work for a car dealership. You need a house, go work for a lumberyard, or a real estate agent or something. I don't know how working for a real estate, I guess a real estate agent might get you a better house deal. I don't know. Let's see here. Do you invest in stocks and Bitcoin? Well, I invest in stocks and I speculate in Bitcoin. So, um, but yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the video. I don't really do a whole lot of like investment stuff. Let's face it, all the folks are completely screwed up with this stupid economy, but we can learn as we go along. Yeah, well, and it's not your fault. It's because like society and school conditioned us. Like it's obviously done on purpose. Like when I figured out a lot of this economic stuff that was happening, and really, like, most people don't really learn the economy like I did, like self-taught. And I don't even know if I'm really self-taught. I guess I am, because I never really went to a class or anything. But like, everybody understands the economy for themselves. It's almost like an art, right? It's the way that you look at it. And it's almost like looking at life. A lot of people get the whole, like, you hear me talk a lot about expectations, right? Because I used to be hung up on expectations a lot. I used to be hung up on expectations of other people. And I found that my life got very depressing when I was living my life that way, and it was just like, when these things didn't happen, all of a sudden I'd be mad or whatever. And I learned to let go of all that stuff, like let go of everybody, everything, and all the crap that's going on in life, and just focus in on the things that I had going on. And started realizing some of the, like, the issues that I had personally. A lot of it was when you give up drinking, you start finding like issues start coming up, that you didn't realize you had because you were covering them up with alcohol. So like that started happening to me, and I started figuring out life a little bit differently. And then I started understanding what it is to like live a more conscious life. Like, I heard people talk about that, but I never understood what that meant, right? I never understood what it is to like work on yourself. I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And then I started realizing, it was just like, oh, it's almost like, it's weird, like this disconnect that you take. Like, I'm going to disconnect myself from everybody. I'm going to let it all go. I'm not going to worry about expectations or what other people think or do or whatever. It's just none of my business anymore. I just don't care, right? And it's not even like it's so much that you don't care. It's just that it's not that it's going to be like something that is going to affect your your personal outcome. When you do that, you realize that, and people around you all of a sudden become attracted to that. Like, they become magnetically attracted to the idea that you have let all that stuff go, and they don't even know it. Like, you haven't stated it or anything like that. You just do it, right? It's almost like this magic feeling. Once you realize, it's like, oh, these are the reasons why I was so upset, is because I didn't set boundaries or enforce boundaries when I should have been, and then, like, because I had these expectations and I didn't enforce these boundaries and they got broken, now I'm all pissed, right? So once you realize that you could set these things ahead of time and say, hey man, no, this is too close, this is like whatever, these are the things that I got, all of a sudden life becomes a lot easier, right? And so become like aware in that fashion. I don't know if I'm describing it right, but anyway, becoming aware in that fashion has you living that more conscious life. All of a sudden things become a lot easier and you feel a lot better about things. Same thing with the economy. Like, if you are so confused about the economy, you get pissed about it. You get mad about the Fed, you get mad about political decisions, you get, mad about investments or something like that. It's because it's very confusing and you're not aware, right? Once you become aware of it, once you become aware of the Fed strategy, once you become aware of like how governments act and think, once you become aware of like, what the corporations are going to be doing and stuff, and how they sell debt and how people like invest into this stuff, and it's not so confusing. And when it's not confusing, it's not scary, and so it just becomes more of like something that just is, and you just kind of be with it. Now, like, even like when somebody like, comes up and it was just like, hey man, I got this issue, it's just like, whoa, yeah, you do have an issue, but I'm not going to take this issue on, right? I'll listen to you for just a minute while you explain your issue, but this isn't mine and I'm not going to take it on. I just lost connection. Oh, there it's back. Same thing with like the Fed. Oh man, look what they just did. Okay, well, I'm not going to make this, my problem. I'm just going to make it the issue that's out there. I understand it. I know how to conduct myself because of this, and I'm going to continue on with it. I mean, that's really the way I feel about things. Like, being economically aware is, I think, something that is not like even a thought of thing. Like, I don't think anybody really even understands that that is something that they should be looking at. Like, they don't even know that that's a concept. And that's something that I would like to bring to attention, to have people economically conscious. I appreciate your input. Always good insight, both lumber and economy. Thank you. The economy is already at a downward spiral. We might as well make it a spiral even faster. Any thoughts on the anticipation of the central bank digital currency rollout? I mean, it's just like, like I talk about it quite a bit, but it's again, like, there's probably going to be a fairly decent economic event taking place, like a downturn, natural disaster, something like that. And they're going to use the central bank digital currency. They're going to introduce it. Like, here, this is going to help you out. Go buy food, go buy provisions, whatever it is. It's going to be the easiest way for you to get money. The Federal Reserve and the injection of money directly from the Fed to the people, isn't legal. And they can't do it, so they have to buy something. They have to buy like a treasury. They have to buy, mortgage-backed security. They have to buy something. They have to buy something from the secondary market. That is typically how the Federal Reserve is going to operate. So the central bank digital currency is going to need the Fed's chart. They're going to need to change the law, right? And in order to make it like legal, okay. Now, maybe they already have this idea in motion, like, here, this is how we're going to do it when the time comes. I don't know. Like, maybe somebody's already figured that part out, but I'm assuming that it's going to come with like a disaster of some sort, or an economic event that's going to say, hey, like, we got your solution just in time, right? Here, this summer, it worked out perfect. Sharing this knowledge is like lighting a candle and then using your candle to light other candles. We will live in a brighter world because we all one at a time lit each other's candles. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a buddy of mine a long time ago who used to talk all these wild, crazy conspiracy theories that I would just sit around and smoke joints with and listen to him, and I would just think, man, this guy's just completely nuts, right? And then, like, as time went on, I started finding that a lot of the stuff he was talking about, I'm like, oh no, and it was all this crazy stuff that he was talking about. And like, so once, like, it was like a tiny little spark that he had given me, but then once I saw evidence of it, that flame started to grow, and I started doing research on my own. And so I really have to take it down to, it was one guy. Like, I already kind of had an interest in money collecting, like coin collecting and stuff, but it was from that guy kind of babbling off on me about conspiracy theories that really got me interested. Yeah, you could. Thing is, they aren't you and haven't learned what you have. All right. Guys, we all know the best car is a 94 Celica. Well, I wouldn't disagree. Peter is one of the few small hats I respect. What brand coffee are you drinking? You should try Lavazza coffee brand. I am drinking Major Dickerson's right now. Major Dickerson's blend. Pete's. Present values of future cash flows of Bitcoin is 0. Rick Morty, 50-50 with BTC and gold. Gold has 3,000-year-old track record. BTC less than 20 and not stable. Yeah. I remember watching Peter Schiff on programs in 2005 and 6 and 7, being laughed at. Took his advice in 5 and broke college student and bought some gold and silver. Yeah, I did the same thing. Like, but I bought in 2000. Oh, let's see. I started buying in 2009, late 2009, 10, and into 11. And I tell you, it was not a good feeling watching silver go from $49 an ounce when you had been buying it all the way up to 35, listening to guys like Max Kaiser and the likes and all the other ones out there talking about how the end of the world was coming and hyperinflation and all that other stuff, and silver was going to go to $500 an ounce, and everybody who's buying silver is going to be driving Lambos, right? This is what I was thinking back in 2011. Then I watched silver go from $49 an ounce down to like $15 an ounce. I didn't sell a single one, and I was out. I didn't sell any, so but I like was pretty much like had gone underwater on all, like, I was down on my silver a lot, by a lot of money, during a time in which that I really shouldn't be out of money. Like, I was very broke at the time, and all I had was this silver that I had purchased at an expensive price, and now was worth way less than what I had paid for it. So that was what I got from following that advice. I got a lesson. I got a lesson learned from it, right? So I was pretty mad about that. Like, I told these guys, kiss off. Like, I am not following that advice ever again. You know how much money I dumped into silver while it ran up to $50 an ounce? Crashed JP Morgan, buy silver. Here's a little piece of silver with my face on it. I mean, global insurrection against banker occupation. Let's go get these guys. You think here I am, some dipshit, didn't hardly have any money. I'm following these guys, taking their economic advice, dumping my money into silver. This, and this is what I get out of it? Well, I got a lesson from it. All right? I learned a lesson. I was just like, well, now I'm not following that advice again. I already did that. I already made you rich once. I ain't doing that again. All right? I still believe in silver, but I believe for it in a different way. I don't believe in crashing JP Morgan. Right? If that's the reason you're buying silver. I don't believe in buying silver because I'm going to drive Lambo someday. Right? That's not the reason why I buy silver. Right? I buy silver as an insurance policy. One day I couldn't make it to work. I was broke. I had nothing in my life. I had no money. I had no way. My family was like, "Hey, you're on your own, dude. Figure it out." I like 10 miles from where I work. Bus system doesn't run out here. I'm out in the middle of the country. What do I do? Call my buddy. It's like, "Hey, man, you got that Tahoe for sale?" He's like, "Yeah, you know it." I said, "You gonna take silver?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I will." So you drive it up here? I'll be up there in a few minutes, man. He drives up there. I open up an ammo can. I pull out 165 ounces of silver. He signs a title over to me, and I was driving the next day. I was able to make it to work. That was pretty damn cool. All right? So with that lesson, I will always have insurance, right? Silver will be my insurance. Like all the rest of the car insurance, all that other stuff, that's all bogus stuff. That isn't insurance. That's just something that's some way to taking care of you from being sued, right? That's what that is. That's a sue prevention. You want some real insurance, you got to have something tangible in your hand away from that third party, and that's what silver does, right? And it proved it to me with that car. That's what I look at. Right? All right, moving on. Rubbing hands intensifies. Yeah, drinking my coffee here. Alright, moving on. Rev up your POS. No. It's okay. I know you did an interview with Peter Schiff. I watched. You backed down on Bitcoin. I didn't back down. I told him I did it. Come on, man. No. Wait a minute, man. I am not in the middle. When I do interviews, I am not about to debate my interview. Like, I'm not. That's not my intent. I told him. I asked him about Bitcoin. I asked him his opinion on it. I let him address the viewers of my channel with his opinion, without me saying, hey, I'm going to back, to try and push back against that. That's not what my interviews are about. I mean, sometimes I have, like, I didn't mean to, like, push back against it just because of the natural course of my conversation. I've done that. But I intently don't debate my interviews. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I want my interviews to be honest, authentic, their opinion, of what they have to say. And I want my audience to take it for just that, for the face value of the question that goes along with it. I may disagree with it, but I am not there to try and change their opinion on it or to debate them. If I wanted to do a debate, and I would set it up as a debate and have like mediator and questions and stuff like that to deal with. So when Peter Schiff asked me about it, I told him straight up, yeah, well, I buy Bitcoin. I told him straight up I do it, right? I didn't give him an argument for it or against it or anything else. I just told him that I do it. And he was like, he says, well, if you don't plan on losing any money, I guess it would be okay if you did it, right? And he told me it wasn't a good idea, but I told him I did it, and I didn't say defend the reason why or anything like that, because that's not what I was trying to do. So I didn't back down. If you think I backed down, then that would be like I was debating him. I wasn't debating, let's see here. Where do you learn so much about economics? You know more than many of my classmates in college did, and we all majored in economics. Well, thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate it. I just keep reading, man. Every day. Like, every day, this is what, like, some people follow sports. Some people, like, have like a real life where they go fishing and stuff. Like, I study economics. I study the flow of money. I study like everything that I can that has anything to do with the Federal Reserve's monetary policy or whatever. Like, I don't even know like how or what or how much I learned. Most people when they study economics, like, most people study from a base. Like, and this is the way it was kind of explained to me, because I didn't even understand like to what level. Like, people say, well, do you follow Keynesian? Do you follow the Austrian School of Economics? Whatever. It's just like, I don't like, I know what those two are, but I don't understand what the question is, because I don't understand what following that means. Like, do I have a belief in that this is the way that an economy should operate, or is that really what we're doing here? Or are we trying to figure out what the economy is and what's going on? Because I think that's probably more of the question that a lot of us are looking for. And when you study the economy, they say, okay, well, here's a book, boom, right? And now study this, right? And here's your base, and this is what you're going to learn. And then from here on, everything you gather is going to be off of this base, right? That you have learned, because you started off with this like course that you have taken as far as the economy goes. I never got that. Like, I don't know what that base would be. Like, I don't even understand what the base is, right? And because to me, like, when I started studying the economy, at least like the first question that I had when I went to my computer was, what's a mortgage-backed security? Right? That was literally my first question, because I'm sitting there watching CNBC, and they said, because of the mortgage-backed security, and I'm like, okay, boom, I turned it off, and I was just like, whatever. I don't understand anything that is said. The only thing I heard was mortgage-backed security. What's that, right? And so I started reading up, and I just kept reading on mortgage-backed security until I finally understood what a mortgage-backed security was. In the midst of trying to understand what a mortgage-backed security was, I had to learn about a bunch of other little stuff that was in that in order to understand what the mortgage-backed security was. As I started to do that, it just kept picking up pace, right? And so I would like eventually find myself reading a Fed speech, or finding like, listening to Peter Schiff talk about something, or listening to Doug Casey, or I listened to a YouTuber, SGT Bull, back in like, I don't know, probably 2009 timeline, somewhere around there. That was where I first saw Lynette Zhang, was on his channel. I don't know whatever happened to him, but I followed him a lot in some of the interviews and stuff that he was doing at the time. And that's where I picked up a lot of this stuff. So really it was like kind of having that interest, and then being like, okay, what is, asking all those questions, getting into the Fed speeches, and then starting this channel. Like once I kind of got an idea a lot of what was going on, and I could talk like economics to a lot of my friends, like they're like, wow, you seem to know a lot about this stuff. When I got a lot of that, a friend of mine had come to me, and it was a girl that I was working with, and I was just babbling off about the economy. I don't know, saying something about the Fed and taper tantrum or something. I don't know what I was talking about, but this girl Brittany, and Brittany is really tall, blonde girl, you know, like grew up on a farm, rides horses and stuff, and she comes up and she puts her fist on my desk, right? I'm sitting there at my desk, and she puts her fist and she looks at me and she goes, listen, you're gonna have to start a YouTube channel or a blog or something, because nobody here understands anything that you're saying, and you're kind of driving us nuts. And I went, oh, okay, right, Brittany. Okay, I get it. So I went down to this old Aurora car. This, you remember the Oldsmobile Aurora? Anyway, I went down to this old Aurora that I had, and I fired up my camera and I did the introductory video to the Uneducated Economist. Went back into work, used the work's Wi-Fi to upload the video, and the Uneducated Economist was born. And the more I started studying to try and come up with video content, you watched it happen. Like that's how it happened, you know, and just kept putting out videos. All right, canned deer meat is actually pretty good, by the way. Yeah, it is. Somebody, one of the viewers, I had done a meet and greet at one of the local coffee shops here, and one of the viewers had stopped by and gave me a jar of canned deer spam, homemade deer spam that he had made. I have it still. I haven't tried it yet, but I'll try it sometime. He said it was pretty good, so. Canned meat as a hobby just sounds weird. Joking, it's good skill. No, it is weird, but it is a good skill. I mean, both of it is. We did a video here on the channel talking about it. We actually went down to the store and bought a bunch of chicken and went home and cut it up and canned it all up and did a video showing the whole process. It was a good one. I learned economics in college, and then after I really learned about economics, it's like street smarts versus book smarts. Yeah. Let's see here. Razor blades, for example. Huh. I would freeze dry them, carrots, and sell them to homely chicks. Huh. Interesting. All right. I canned whitefish. I loved canned heat, the band. UE, I have a buddy that works at a lumber mill on the east side of Washington State on the res. They ramped up in the past few months. Any ideas on where they're distributing the lumber? Well, if it's a lumber mill like producing like framing lumber or something like that, that just gets into the distribution. Like a lot of people, I mean, you might find where a particular mill has sold their production to a particular individual, like a big box store or something has, bought all the production of a particular mill. But for the most part, it ends up going into the distribution network. Like, it goes into like the wholesale buying, goes into the stockyards, goes into the rail systems. All this, like, because Doug fir lumber, it's like a fungible asset, right? For the most part. Like, obviously there's different grades of lumber, different species of lumber. But when it comes to like framing 2x4, standing and better lumber or something like that, like the 2x4s here are the same as the 2x4s over there, right? And there's no difference inside of that. So when you go out there into the market to look for them, you're not looking, I want 2x4s from this particular mill. Like you might do that, but for the most part, if you're looking for lumber to fill in a project or a mill or for a yard or something like that, for retail sales, you don't really care what mill it comes from. You just want your unit of lumber to sell. And so where it goes, nobody knows. Like it just starts flowing into the system and it just starts sending it out there. There was a time when my yard was completely stocked with Interford lumber, right? Like every single unit in the entire yard had the exact same label on it, all of them. Now you go through the yard and there's probably 20 different mills. Like I have never seen such a variety. Like, well, it may not be that bad now, but during the peak of like the COVID shortage and we were trying to get lumber in from wherever we could, like we were just trying to source out lumber. It was the distribution networks that were trying to get it from wherever they could to get it to us. We found that like literally like 20 different, like I went around, I'm like, I was finding mills that I have never even heard of before. I'm like, man, where is this stuff coming from? And so it was just a matter of like, trying to fill in the gaps wherever they could. So there is no like rhyme or reason to where that lumber actually goes in the end. I mean, most mills have like a distribution network that they distribute it into, and that distribution network just finds its places. Once those partnerships are established, that's where it goes, right? If there's a breakdown of that, then you might find a reestablishment of distribution networks, and then you find all of a sudden like lumber's coming from a mill that you had never seen before, and we're getting lots of it or something, just because that new partnership has been built. I don't know. Does any of that make sense? The lumber distribution network is strange. It is so big, so vast, so intense. It takes a lot to it, and it's amazing for as big and bulky and heavy as the whole process is, how cheap lumber really ends up being. Like, you think about it, you got this tree way up in the woods, you have to cut that down, you have to haul it off the hill, you have to get it all the way to the mill, then you have to process it at the mill, then you have to take it and distribute it throughout the system, get it to a lumber yard in which it's like, the bands are cut and then eventually sold on a retail side of things. And all you get is $3 for this little stick, right? Well, you look at the trees that they're cutting and how many 2x4s they could actually get out of it. It's like, really, that's not that many. I mean, yeah, it's a lot, but it's not that many. And so like the whole system is just like, it takes a lot to make it happen. And here in the United States, we produce a lot of lumber, and so that distribution network was very easy to reestablish. That's one of the reasons why we see the lumber prices as low as we are. Everybody says it's because the builders aren't building. Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons, but the other reason is that we could reestablish the inventory levels fairly quickly the moment that the demand slows down, right? And that's what happened. That's why you don't see hyperinflation taking place in lumber. You don't see any inflation in lumber. It's because the demand for it, is meeting the availability, and like the supply is there. And that's the real natural price now. It's like anything under this, and you'll see mills continue to curtail anything over this, and they're going to produce and start making money again. So, yeah, like inflation doesn't exist in lumber. That's quite weird, right? My favorite is albacore. We launched the boat right where Simon is. Yeah, right out here, they catch a lot of tuna, a lot of albacore, a lot of salmon, a lot of crab. I'm thinking being self-sustaining like the Amish and the Mennonites, but that means I will have to forego a lot of modern luxuries, but at least I'll have peace of mind. Can you imagine being vegan? What do you eat? I don't know. I've gone vegan for times in my life just to cut the meat out for a while. Just I don't know exactly why, but just to do it, I guess. Um, it's okay. I just really enjoy meat. I enjoy steaks. I enjoy eating. I like ribeyes. I can't pass them up. So. Do you really expect society to come out better and more homogenic after the dollar collapses and shortages incurring? No. 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 I don't. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure where you thought I did, or if you did. I don't know. But anyway. Make sure to hit the like button. Yes, please. 371 of you. Yeah, I guess a few people have bailed out. I don't blame them. We're getting kind of boring here. All right. Am I boring? Vegan is old Indian word for bad hunter. Soylent Green is people. Simon, people gotta do what they do, even if it feels weird. Actually, they're taking care of themselves. Yeah. All right. Bulletproof is the way. Opinion on homesteading. Yeah, I mean, Anything that you can do to be self-sustaining, I am totally down with. I think it's a great hobby as far as that goes. As far as a way of life, I I don't know. Like, I mean, I could understand that. I could see where that would have be very freeing. Like, as far as being like, free from society, or free from the expectations of the entire world out there, and being just, reliant upon yourself and what it is that you need to do to take care of yourself. I mean, I can see all that. I personally like the idea of like one day sitting on a jet airplane flying to some tropical place. Like I like that idea too, you know. And generally if you're doing the homesteading thing, you're probably not thinking of like tropical trips, kind of thing. Like you might be, but most likely not. So I'm not much in the way of like leaning towards homesteading. I'm more towards the way of like enjoying tropical trips. Right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody can see it differently than that, but that's the way I see it. Yeah. Hey UE, happy Saturday. Thanks for spending it with us. Yeah, well, thank you all for being here. We're 2 hours and 19 minutes into this. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, maybe we'll give it another half hour or so. In recent bank failures implies small to medium banks and credit unions will ultimately fail. Larger banks will grow as capital relocates. Fed now is the beginning of the central bank digital currency rollout. Who owns the Fed? Right. I agree with all that stuff. I mean, that's probably what we're going to end up seeing is that most of the banks are going to start getting absorbed. I think I said that earlier, actually, and yeah, and eventually fall into tokenizing. Really, if you want to like do the Great Reset, you have to tear it down, right? You have to tear it down to its bare minimum. Once you get it torn down to the minimum, then you can start getting everybody to switch. Like if you try to switch everybody when it's this big, huge, cumbersome ball, it's going to be very difficult. But if you break it down to just the very bare minimums, like this is what we have left. You slow production down, you slow all the economy down to the grinding halt, and then do the switch. And we'll see how it looks. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I can see it starting with tokenizing of stuff. Tokenizing of like commodities is going to be really the big thing. And then it'll move into like everything. It'll right down to your wages, like your hours you work will be tokenized, and everything will be tracked and traced and all that. All right, good question. Who really does own the Fed? Audit the Federal Reserve Bank now. Probably just because he worked at a lumberyard every morning for the last 10 years. Let's see here. Man, you get the reference, don't you? It's a movie from the 70s called Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. Yeah, Soylent Green, that was a good one. Talk about it in the Creature from Jekyll Island. Oh, they must be talking something. Okay. It's not worth my energy to worry about others' unwarranted expectations of me. Totally true, all-nighter. Totally true. It screws down to the bottom here. Let's see what you guys are talking about right now. Oh my gosh, look at all these comments. All right, UE, when's your next vacation? My next vacation? I don't know. I needed to take one last year, but I ended up going to Miami to the Rebel Capitalist. So I used up vacation time for that. I felt bad. I had a gentleman invite me to go to Lake Tahoe, and I was going to do that, and things just kind of got disrupted, and I couldn't really schedule it right, in which I felt bad for him because he was just like, dude, come down. And I'm like, man, I will. And then I don't know, things just got really screwed up for me at the time. What did your grandpa do for a living? My grandfather, one of them was a farmer, dairy farmer, Wisconsin. And the other one was in the military, did army stuff, and to be honest, he was really old when I was a kid, and I cannot remember what his career was. He was already retired by that time, but I can't remember what it is exactly he did. I remember like he did a long term in the army. Yeah. Hmm. Isn't that weird? I'm gonna have to ask my dad about that. That's weird. Let's see here. You should do a stream yard and have guests. Hey Yui, you always say tokenization. Can you give us an example of how we'll see this in everyday life? Okay. Okay. Um, so a cow is born, and the cow is given a tag, right? And that tag is coin, right? So now that cow is represented by a coin, a crypto coin out there, right? Let's just use that for example. Everything that happens to that cow, every event, from the weather to the vaccinations to everything, the feed schedules, everything that happens to it, right? Say, the cow trips, falls, twists an ankle, medical record of it, all that stuff gets recorded, right? Then, when it comes time to harvest the cow, this is dated, and the cow is then processed, right? Each piece of the cow is then tokenized again, right? From that original coin is then now busted into all the rest of the different pieces of the cow that is now being processed, that's been processed, right? So if you can imagine now, all these pieces that are flying through the distribution system, they will be able to pick out one of these steaks and say, this cow was born on this day, got these vaccinations, on this day got hurt, whatever, blah, 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 all the way to the time that it is now going through the distribution network. So you can imagine that by the time it gets all the way through the distribution network to the retail customer, who is then taken their tokenized hours and purchased this tokenized steak, that the moment that they purchase this tokenized steak, the record of that steak, the time that it actually arrived to the store, right? The time that it got purchased, the time that it arrived to the store, the truck that it was on, right? They'll know the truck, they'll know the weather conditions of the day that it happened, they'll know if that truck broke down, they'll know the freezer temperature of the reefer unit on the truck. All that stuff will be recorded onto that steak all the way back to the day that they butchered it. They will know every single aspect of it because all this recording will be done within the blockchain, right? It will be all recorded onto this thing. Now, you can imagine that at one point they realized that there was a problem with one of these steaks. There's, some kind of bacteria growth going on it, and they need to inform everybody. Well, because of this tokenizing and the way that it is tracked and traced through the blockchain, they will know every single distributor who had access to this steak. They will know where that steak was, and they'll know right down to the individual who purchased it, and they can give you a warning saying, hey, don't eat that thing. Right? So that's just kind of out of my imagination, but I can imagine it would roll down something like that. I don't know, does anybody else concur? Hey, right on, I got another super chat here. Thank you very much. The infamous NYC, is everything becomes tokenized, then would it still be worth working? Wouldn't people move towards self-sufficiency? Who could causing inflation? I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like. Like, most people are, like, a lot of people are going to be self-sufficient. Those who are aware of being self-sufficient. But if you live in the middle of the city, you're in an apartment, and you're watching this video right now, you're thinking self-sufficient? How am I going to do that? Like, I don't even know anybody who has a 3x3 plot of dirt that I could even stand on, let alone like try to be self-sufficient on it. So like I think self-sufficient really is for people who are aware of the ability to do that within themselves, that have that available. Most people, I don't think, have that, and so self-sufficient is going to be very difficult. You would have to like locate to a place that is that way. I personally feel like I could get there, but I don't know if that's necessarily the direction that you have to go as much as it is as being able to do. Does that make sense? Like, having the ability to do it, I think, is probably more important than actually doing it at this point. Wow, look at all this. Right on. Infamous NYC with the $10. Thank you so much, man. Or would the government ban the ability to be self-sufficient. At the point, why would you want to remain in the system like that? Wouldn't the wealthy just leave because you wouldn't have an economy? Yeah, I mean that's what I think is probably going to end up happening to a lot of this nation. I mean, you think about it, if things are like what Cantillon was saying about like this flow of money, and then once the new money gets turned off and everybody starts falling into poverty, like the wealthy are going to take their all their efforts and time and energy and stuff like that, and they're going to go to a productive nation. They're not going to be in one that's suffering in poverty, right? Now, if you can get things up and moving again, well, that's something different. Like the United States, I don't think is going to fall into poverty like Cantillon's essay would be. I mean, right now we produce like enough food and energy that I just don't see it following like that. What I see the major problem is people gosh, I have the hardest time with the word abandoning, right? The dollar. That would be like a different thing. Like that's the scary scenario of what would our society look like when the dollar starts to lose that reserve currency status, right? Now, again, we can produce food and fuel here. And that's like really the key to it all. If you can produce food and fuel, then most likely you can start selling that food and fuel off, and that's where you can get your new money coming in. The only problem with doing that is that it's going to become very expensive for yourself because you're going to deprive your own people of food and fuel in order to get the new money to come in order to benefit the wealthy, because we have this huge, wealth gap, right? That's not going to work out very well. So how that scenario ends up going down, I don't know, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just, but you got to think that's probably what's going to end up looking like, right? Food and fuel are going to get incredibly expensive. All right, what was it? And the infamous NYC just loaded me up today, man. Thank you so much. $2, and I should say you wouldn't have a free economy. No. I think the chances of a free economy when it comes to the cryptocurrencies, once like the Fed now, once we get the central bank digital currencies and all that, like even like the idea of a free economy would just pretty much be eliminated at that point, which is quite sad. But then again, it really wouldn't, because then you would have like the rise of the black market, which would truly be the free economy. Like that would be a free market, the black market would be. And so if you have people trading, goods and services for other goods and services out there, well, that would be the new economy. You might have one running right alongside of another. Like you have the digital tokenized one, the track traced one, and then you got the off the grid one. And people might recognize these two and just say, hey, I'll help you out off the grid, or something like that. And how do you want to do it? Okay, let's figure out the trade. And then people just start becoming barterers, Hard time makes strong men, good times make weak men, and my last comment, had to break it up, couldn't post it. One grandpa was auto parts salesman, I guess, and the other crazy from World War II, rest of his life. All right, government representatives cannot ban human rights without the consent of the people. We would kill the shit out of them. Some of us would. Yep, I totally agree with you, all-nighter. Digital ID, not for me. How long until you can get an office for doing your videos? I can build an office anytime I want. Well, here's the thing with the office. I tried to get an office. There's this guy, Floyd, here in town, and he has, out where the Coffee Girl is, out on Pier 39, he has some office space off of this pier. And right out the window is the Columbia River, and it's absolutely this beautiful shot. Like, absolutely awesome. It was expensive. It was an expensive office, but I thought, if I could get the UE fans to buy me this office. I could do these absolutely killer interviews from this beautiful office space with the Columbia River right out the window. I could put a fishing pole right there. I could catch fish while doing my videos, and it would just be badass. And like I totally envisioned this beautiful setup, and I took my camera down there and I did this video where I was like, hey guys, check out this office space, look at what I could do, this would be so awesome, wouldn't this be rad? And everybody lit up and said, if you leave the car, we're unsubscribing, we're out of here. You basically, if you leave the car, we're done. So I had to stay in the car. Like, I mean, go and watch the video. I'll go see if I can find the link. I'll leave it down in the description. But I mean, they literally did. Like, go and look at the comments. They were like, dude, stay in the car. We love you in the car. Be in the car. Don't leave the car, right? So I'm like, all right. So I'm in the car, right? I'll stay in the car. And it was probably a good deal because it was an expensive office space, but it was way cool, you know? Boom. Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the, like I said, you're loading me up tonight, man. That's so awesome of you. If you were worried about wealth leaving your country, I would no longer take dollars and only central bank digital currencies. I think Nigeria did this where they devalued their dollar and only allowed trade in central bank digital currencies. They did. You are absolutely right about that. And that is really a good like kind of thought about it too. Like, how do you prevent the money from leaving your country? Like here, the United States, we want the money to leave the country. We want people to be using our dollars, right? Because that creates a demand for dollars and gives us a standard of living that is like beyond anything that we should really truly have. So we try to export our money and our everything we got, like, you know, like get it all out of here. And we just want everybody to send us their efforts. So how do you prevent, like, you know, another nation from having their currency leave? That's an awesome way of doing it. Central bank digital currencies, and then you can track where everything money goes. You can actually literally prevent the transaction from leaving the country. So that's kind of interesting to think about. Did I see another one down there? Yes, I did. James, thank you very much for the $2. Very cool of you. Can you do a video on UK versus USA economies? I really couldn't, just simply because I'm too focused in on the United States and not necessarily focused in too much on Europe or the UK or Germany or Russia or China. Like a little bit on China. I've been I've been following, like, because I think the things that are happening in China kind of find themselves out throughout the rest of the world. So like I kind of follow what the monetary policies coming out of China are, how they're reacting to their corporate debt crisis, how they're gonna, how these other nations handle their sovereign debt crisis. But as far as like the individual economies themselves and in the condition that they are in, unfortunately, I'm just more focused here on the United States, because I think the monetary policies of the United States are more important than just about any other nation out there. Any monetary policy that the United States does transfers through anybody who is using the dollar to facilitate their trade or to back their currency. Like, if you were to take a central bank digital currency and, like, say a stable coin, right? And then you have a monetary policy change and you have a stable coin that is backed by the dollar, any monetary policy change that takes place is going to transfer right into the stable coin. Right? So it doesn't matter if you have a stable coin or not, whatever monetary policy changes by the Federal Reserve would transfer right into the stable coin. That doesn't matter if it's a foreign currency that's going one-to-one with the dollar, like they're going to back their currency with the dollar. Whatever monetary policy happens in the United States would transfer right into that currency itself. So I kind of lost pace of what I was saying there. Oh, as far as the differences in the economy. So, yeah, I mean, I probably should do a little bit more studying into that, but I just don't know if I can find the time. Like, I don't even know if I keep up enough on what I'm doing already, so. Alright, did I see another one down there? Yes, I did. James, thank you again for the $5. Love to sponsor a few videos on the best economies going forward. Huh. I'm curious to see your view on global scale, not a detailed view, and overall view. Curious to see your view on global scale. Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be fun to do. Maybe sponsored videos, get people to pay me to cover a particular topic. I mean, I've had people in the past actually kind of do something like that. You know, they send me like a thank you or something like that, and it was like, hey, I'd love to hear your views on this particular topic or something like that. And you know, that would be interesting. Just I don't know that trying to think of different ways that I can expand the channel without trying to without actually having to dedicate myself into like taking away from like what it is that I'm already doing. Like if I could just expand into what it is that I'm already have going on, like doing the consultation thing sounds fun, but to me it seems like it's just like, really, what do I know that somebody would want to pay me to talk about? But then again, a lot of people ask me for stuff like that. So let's see here. Thank you, James. Yeah, thank you, All Nighter, for doing that. Appreciate it, bro. Do you leave your house keys connected to your car while driving? No. Typically, I don't really have this many keys. So most of the time, I usually drive without these ones and these other ones on there. So yeah, I actually have quite a few keys on here that I shouldn't be carrying right now. So no, I don't usually drive with all these. Hey, right on, Dan. Thank you for joining the channel. Very cool of you, man. You think trucks will drive itself soon? Yeah, I do. I think self-driving vehicles are definitely on their way. It's really, I mean, they're already here, I mean, it's for the most part. But I would imagine, like, in 50 years from now, like, the conveniences are going to be, like, so extreme. Like, it's going to be beyond. Like, you'll have an app, it'll be like, hey, I want to, like, it won't even be that way. It would be more like you're in your house talking about like what would be a good idea, and like, yeah, let's do this, and then you'll go to your phone and it will already have built you an itinerary of everything you need, with the cars showing up and everything already lined up for you, with lunches and stuff, like you'll have your favorite meals. You didn't even have to think about it. All you have to do is just agree to it, and then a few minutes later a car would show up and carry you away. That's the type of conveniences that it's going to come. Like, that's how awesome it's going to be. People are going to be scared to death of this, right? And it is scary to think about. Like, they don't know what your favorite meals are and where you want to go before you even thought about it. Like, you just look at it and go like, yeah, that's everything I wanted, is because the AI already figured it out. They already know who you are, like, that's how bad it's going to be. But it's going to be awesome too, because it's going to be super convenient, right? Because wealth is convenience, and food conveniences and pleasures of life. And so all this stuff is going to give us great pleasure, because the entire time it's going to be nailing us with a bunch of dopamine hits that we can really enjoy, because we're going to have all these funny short videos that are constantly playing, and little shots of inspirational, like, words of happiness that it kind of constantly bombard you, so you'll never feel lonely or depressed. And the moment that it does turn off, you'll like just crave it like you wouldn't believe, because we're addicted to it. Sounds fun, doesn't it? This Thank you very much for joining the channel, Dan. I do appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, I do have the membership to the channel. I'm trying, guys. What I do right now is I give the memberships access to the videos before I make them public. There is times that I have like just left videos just for the members, but most of the time I think the members really do want to see me upload the videos or allow the videos to go public, to get the reactions from the rest of the viewers, because really that's kind of what we're looking for on a lot of this stuff, is to get the opinions in the comment section. I mean, the comment section of my channel is like pure gold. I really, like, I look at other people's comment section and I really do feel that like the people who follow the Uneducated Economist are a very intelligent group who are giving very honest opinions on things. I mean, I get the occasional trolls and jokesters out there and stuff like that, which is cool because everybody's going to get it, but really I do have a very good quality following here on this channel, and so I really do appreciate it, when you guys are supporting the channel by joining the membership and giving you access to those videos first. I mean, it's like, I don't know, if that's a great like perk or anything like that, but you know, it's something that I can do for you guys for right now. And like I said, I did keep a couple of them just for the members, you know, but like I said, you guys seem to kind of wanted to go, you know, public anyway. Looks like you got an S10. I do have this S10. You know, automated driving truck, vending machine, Amazon. You know, will it be expensive to own a gas car because of electric cars in the future? Yeah, I think it's going to be expensive to own just about anything. Like you're not going to even want to own it because the pleasures of life that you're going to experience by spending your money in that direction is going to be so much better than the pleasure that you'll get from the expense of owning a machine that sits in the garage. Because the phone that you pick up and use, it's gonna bring you the vehicle that you want to be in, right? Like it's gonna, like, there you go, you get carried and you don't need that vehicle, you don't need to pay the insurance, all the other stuff, you just need to pay for that little short trip that you were on. And that's what you're gonna really enjoy about it because of the convenience of it. So yeah, is it gonna be expensive? It's gonna be expensive as hell because the only people who are gonna own them are people who are making money with it. Yeah, Brave New World. Yeah, for sure. Heading to the Goondocks tomorrow morning from Colorado. Nice. Things are moving quickly now, bouncing from one crisis to another. Hey, thank you, Ash, for the $2. What's Brazil's and South Africa interest joining the BRICS? Well, okay, so the whole idea is to set up trade partnerships outside of the United States. And now, typically, a nation wouldn't even remotely be able to do this because any nation that they trade with, they're going to be like, hey, what are you using to trade with? Oh, your sovereign currency? I don't want that. Like nobody wants your money, right? You know, everybody wants is U.S. dollars. And so when you have nations who are like, hey, I want to do a deal, but I screw these US guys. I don't want to deal with them, right? I don't want to deal with their dollars or anything else that goes along with it. And so it's just like, well, how do you do that? Well, you got to get a bunch of partnerships together and you got to get people who say, hey, I have products and you have products and you got commodities and we got resources. You got distribution network and you got a military, you know? And so it's just like, okay, well, here between us all, we got just enough to make this stuff happen, right? And since these guys are a pain in the ass and we really don't like them, and they have us under their control with their little swift communication systems, well, let's set up our own, right? And see if we can build up some partnerships and some distribution networks. And that's what they're doing. Because, I mean, this will fail. Like, this all will fail. Like, at some point. Like, you know, I mean, is it going to happen in our lifetime? I don't know. Like, I mean, who knows how long this is going to last? But, I mean, the history books will tell us, you know, I mean, at some point that this will, like, come to an end. And they'll say, like, back when the United States was the economic powerhouse, you know, and they were in control of all the money flow, blah, blah, blah. Now it's, you know, over in the Asian nation or whatever. I get a siren in every one of my videos, don't I? It's like every video I have ever done seems to have a siren in the background. All right. Next thing you know, you got homeless dudes living in self-driving cars. 50 years from now, old millennials and Generation Z will refuse to let cars drive them and stick to the old ways. That will be what the young people of the future will criticize the old people for. You know, it's so funny. Everybody talks about like millennials and Generation Z and boomers, but everybody forgets about the Generation Xers. Like, do we just not exist or something? Like, everybody forgot about us or something? Like, Generation who? X who? There's a Generation X? All right. What's up from the Youp of Michigan? What's that? Uneducated Economist. The Youp of Michigan. Well, what's up, man? All right. Uneducated Economist, thanks for all your updates and info. So when is the bottom falling out of the housing? The fall. Be self-sufficient and get out of debt, peeps. Yeah. I couldn't tell you when the bottom of the housing market. Probably I don't know, right before they lower interest rates. I don't know. Um, I can't tell you, like already I was seeing articles where the house prices have actually ticked up in a lot of areas across the nation. It leads me to believe that a lot of what I was saying as far as like the availability of the amount of inventory of homes, right? This is like really where it comes in. This is like, yeah, it's a bad situation. Home prices are quite expensive, and the chances of them falling are quite extreme. Now, we have to think what really is the problem here? Supply and demand, right? The amount of available homes out there versus the amount of people who want to buy a home. And now, how many stories have you heard? I'm standing on the sidelines, I'm waiting, I'm not going to buy a house in this housing market. This is a buildup of tension of buyers, right? We're hanging out down here and we're getting very eager, right? Because we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and now what are we waiting for? Prices to come down. So here you got prices really elevated, and you got this big ball of people who are like being surprised, like, I'm not doing it yet, I'm waiting for the prices to come down. Now you have this elevated housing prices. As soon as the price of a house starts to come down because they're eager to sell for whatever reason, boom, somebody snaps and grabs it, right? Because they're eager, right? So any good deal that pops up, somebody's ready to jump. Everybody's waiting for a good deal. You all can't get a good deal at the same time because the deals come up one at a time. Like people are looking for this wave, boom, of good deals to hit the housing market. How would that happen? Like, where does that come from? This wave of good deals. Like, it has to come from what? Like a bunch of people going into foreclosure? Like, that would be noticed. Like, you would see that coming. It takes like a year and a half, 2 years to do a foreclosure, especially if you have a flood of them hitting the market. So, like, the wave of foreclosures is years away, even if it was to start today. So, that's not a bottom to the housing market coming anytime soon. Is it going to come from an overbuild? Like, so many home builders out there just like going crazy trying to take advantage of these high prices by building up a bunch of homes. Well, we already know that's not taking place. There is like a backlog of incompleted homes, but even still the backlog of incompleted homes still really isn't driving up the inventory market, so, or the inventory of this market. I mean, I'm trying to find it. Like, I really want to see it. Like, I don't want to see it, but I would like to see it if it's there for me to take advantage of that situation. I don't see it. Like, every time I see that a price of a home comes down that makes it somewhat like even like remotely interesting, boom, it's nabbed up, right? And when you think about like the Federal Reserve and their promise to raise interest rates, does that keep the mortgage rates going up? No, not even. Like they continually promise to keep interest rates elevated and to keep increasing interest rates. But does the mortgage market follow the interest rates? No, they don't follow even close to that. It's because there's a market all on its own that's away from the Federal Reserve. Yeah, it's true. The Federal Reserve does have a balance sheet with mortgage-backed securities on it, but the unwinding of those mortgage-backed securities into the mortgage market, like where the other investors are buying these mortgage-backed securities, there's less mortgage-backed securities being written right now. Less refinancing, less homes being purchased. Well, that's less mortgage-backed securities to be adding to the pool of mortgage-backed securities for investors to buy. So if this pool of mortgage-backed securities is diminished, just like any other supply and demand out there, you got investors who demand, the fixed income coming from mortgages, from these mortgage-backed securities. And if the price of them starts to, fall to a particular level that says, hey, man, that's my game, right? Well, then you find that's where the prices are going to be. The interest rates are going to find that level as well. Prices, the mortgage is just like the mortgage-backed security is like a bond, just like any other, with a yield attached to it. Prices versus yield. Prices fall, yields rise. The yield attracts the investor. Hey, that's the number I need, right? So they find the market. They're on the free market, whatever the hell that is. But that's really what's, in my opinion, what is happening there. So the Fed can continue to raise interest rates. It doesn't mean the mortgage market's going to continue to go up, right? And so maybe we're finding it. Maybe we are finding that bottom right now. I don't know. Like, I mean, time will tell, but, this is what I see happening. A lot of people are like, I talked to some really, really intelligent people about the housing market. Nobody talked about it like that to me. like about the mortgage market and the pool of mortgage-backed securities that would be available out there if less mortgages are being written due to refinancing. I mean, I put all these pieces together and I spit it out for somebody, and they're like, whoa, whoa, what'd you just say? And I'm like, yeah, didn't you line up all these pieces too? No, I did. They're like, that's what I'm looking at. And people were like, Jesus, man, that was like, but that's how I do it, right? You gather all these pieces and you put them all together and you're like, oh, look at this. And then, I mean, again, like, am I right or wrong? I don't know. Time will tell, But I mean, it seems to be like when I made this kind of like thought, like I put out this theory months ago, months and months and months ago, before, just as the Federal Reserve was starting to raise interest rates. I said, hey, this could be the case coming up, and that even though the Fed is raising rates, doesn't mean that the mortgage market's going to follow suit, right? And everybody's like, no, you're nuts. Mortgages are going to 15% or whatever. And I'm like, no way. No way is a mortgage going to go up there. The investors, the mortgage-backed security investors would jump in long before that. I mean, I think they would anyway. Man, we got something going on here. This is like the third emergency vehicle to pass by. Lots of sirens in today's video. Did I get another super chat down there? I did. Thank you very much. The Django Geek? Come on, Maddox, get out of here. Okay. Thank you very much for the $5. Very cool of you. Instead of using savings to make down payment on rental, you could put it towards your current mortgage, do a recast, and save an extra few $100s a month. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I guess, like, really, I don't, like, at a 3% mortgage rate on my house, I don't know if I would necessarily, because, like, you can put, like, what would you rather do? Take your money and save the 3%, or take your money and go and earn 7%? You see, like, what is better, like the 3% that you don't have to pay in interest, or taking your money and earning 7% and offsetting it? So, like, really, you'd be earning like 4%, like, which one is better to do? I get another one. Yes, I did. Hey, thank you. I don't know if I'm butchering your name, man. Ingmar. Thank you very much for the 100. What is that? That's was that from Sweden? Is that what that is? I can't remember. Thank you very much, though. I appreciate the support, man. Let's see here. What is UE? Philo? What's that mean? Philo? Alright. Let's see here. Don't know much about UE. Well, John, I put out a lot of videos, man. You can figure me out. Alright. Billy Idol is Generation X. Yeah, Billy Idol was like, I remember, well, he was like 18 years old when I was like, 6, 7, I don't know. How old is Billy Idol right now? See, listen. Yeah, anyway, let's see here. John, you should super chat and ask him yourself. I agree. Resonate with your point of view. Thanks for the service you give me. Things to chew on. Well, man, thank you very much for that, for joining in on the channel. Like, this is what we do. We try and bounce these ideas off each other, and come up with these ideas, and try to live this more conscious life and understanding of the economy and all this other stuff. This is how we do it. I mean, we have these constant discussions of it. A lot of times when I'm describing something that I'm seeing out there in the economy, or something that I'm seeing within the lumber industry, it's the viewers who are saying, hey, what you are describing is like the bullwhip effect. I mean, it was the viewers who told me about that. I'm sitting there going, guys, this is what I'm finding happening within the lumber industry and all the the distribution network and stuff. And some guy was just like, hey man, you're describing the bullwhip effect. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I am, aren't I? I went and I did the research on the bullwhip effect. I'm like, man, this is exactly it. And so I'm blasting it out there all over the internet, talking about the bullwhip effect and how that's really impacting, a lot of what we're seeing here in the supply chain. And then, I don't know, what was it, like 8, 9 months later, Michael Burry's out there talking about the bullwhip effect, and everybody's like, oh man, Michael Burry's describing the bullwhip effect. I'm like, what about UE? UE was doing it a long time ago. Like, oh well, I don't care. Let's see here. Oh wow, look at all these super chats. Right on. Chad, thank you very much for the $10 Canadian. Recent subscriber, thanks for the content. Well, thank you very much, Chad, for the support. That is very cool of you, man. Again, like, you guys' support of this channel is just like, it's very touching. I never thought in a million years that I would have something like this going on, or being able to, answer super chats like this. So thank you very much. Meow meow kitty poop. I love the name. All right, the SEC are illegitimate criminals. Gary Gensler is Inuch. Happy Easter, UE. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. The Django Geek, $2. Thank you very much. Paying down debt is risk-free. Investment aren't. Yeah, and that's very true. That is true, because really, if you have a debt that has an interest rate of payment to it, there is no better return on your investment than to pay down interest or pay down debt, right? And that is really true. And that's really, like, when it came to me and getting out of debt, that's the way that I looked at it, is that I'm investing by paying my debts off, right? Because there's no better return on your capital than to pay off that interest-bearing debt. So to me, when I was looking at it like an investment, started like putting $20 towards my credit card payment, even though it was a $9,000 debt, it was like I was investing, right? And it felt like investing. And that's what I told myself when I was doing it. It's just like, you're investing money. Well, when you do that all the time, pretty soon you start taking on an attitude that really has you saving a lot more. You're not doing the frivolous spending, like, just going out there and buying something stupid for no reason, when you would rather be investing that money instead. And yeah, it really is a mindset. How long have I been out here? 3 hours. All right, guys, what do you think? Should we keep going for a little while? All right. It's strange to be in the same generation as my mom. Yeah, that is weird. All right. Once figured out to benefit to fly off miles. Change rules. It's not the same for housing. All right, UE has stamina. Yeah, I'm starting to lose it right now. My voice is starting to go. I believe Generation X goes to 81 to 82. No, Generation X was like, God, I remember we were joking around about it. It was just like, you guys don't know what to call us? We were like, like freshmen in high school, and they were like, well, this is Generation X that you guys are, and it was because they can't think of a name to actually give you. They gave us a letter. It was so funny. Like, we were all joking around about it. Like, all right. Generation began with the removal of silver from the coinage. Before boomers, did anyone ever refer to themselves as part of a generation? You're a machine, Simon. I've passed out a few minutes during the stream, pun intended. Yeah, it was a little boring there at times. Thank you for hanging out with us there, all-nighter. I was born in 83 and don't identify as a millennial whatsoever. Not all generations have letters, just post-boom. The greatest generation and the silent generation before. How do you think the essay lines up with the Eurodollar stuff from Jeff Snyder? Well, I think that's a little bit different, because really what we have going on there is a different type of situation in which that Cantillon really didn't have like an understanding of, because like in Cantillon's day, they didn't like, he talks about bank scripts and stuff like that, but in the end it was all gold and silver that was money, right? And so that's really where I think, like, Jeff Snyder's theories and stuff like that really, like, Cantillon's essay is just like not even close to relating to. And that's because of like the exchanges between the different fiat currencies and the exchange rates between them and stuff like that. Um, so I don't know exactly like how to incorporate. Like, I think it would be best if Jeff Snyder really took on Cantillon's theory and then described it, through the euro dollar kind of scenario. I'm trying to, like, grasp it right now, but I really, like, I think he would do a much better job of it because he does understand it a lot better. Like, I look at it from the idea of the borrowing of money to create the new issuance coming in, and who is borrowing that money. Like, if it was us borrowing it from ourselves, like we were a manufacturing powerhouse and somehow borrowing it from ourselves, like you can actually do that, which I don't think you can. But then it would be like money within ourselves, right? But borrowing it from outside of the country and bringing in new money that way, what you are doing is you are exporting, all your, you bring in, you sell your debt, right? So you're like, here, I'm going to sell you a promise to pay you back. You give me the money. Now I got the money. Now I'm going to buy your stuff with it, right? So this is the way I live. I borrow money from you, and then I hand it right back and take your stuff, and then I enjoy the stuff. Hey, let's do that again. Let me borrow, and then here, let me buy your stuff, and then I enjoy the stuff. Like, how long can this last? Right? That's the way I see it. So it's difficult to incorporate somebody else's theory into this one when I'm thinking of just the way this thing works. I don't know. Maybe give me some time, and maybe I can try and like do that. Uh, the euro dollar concept is fascinating. It absolutely is. It's a lot. Anytime. Let's see here. The next generation will be known as the offended generation. That's for sure. I'm scared of living among these generations. Intelligent and concerned generations are gone. Wow, I'm almost gone through my entire battery now. All right. We need factories in North America and nuclear power with modern reactors. New car, used car for my kid. He assumes payments and insurance and lease or own. I think you should go and get a $500 Toyota Corolla. And I think that's what you should do. I mean, I just don't see cars being something of value. Like, I really don't. Like, cars are meant to transport you from point A to point B. Period. That's it. That's the entire purpose, right? And then why it is that we make it so damn expensive to travel from point A to point B is beyond me. And we do it to ourselves. Like, it doesn't need to be that damn expensive, right? We make it that way. We like, I want to drive that beautiful badass Camaro. Like, I want to, man, this feels so awesome. Like, I want to feel that, right? But what's the point, right? I mean, to feel like somebody says go rent one for a while. No, I want to own it. Like, I want to own my feeling. Like, I own this feeling, right? This is mine. I can do it anytime I want. But after you do that a few times, what's the point, right? Like, that's not it. Point is getting from point A to point B. That's the point. And so why we make it so expensive is this crazy. You can travel cheaply, and fairly efficiently. People are like, they gave me a hard time in that video that I just recently did. You want to be rich? Drive a POS beater, right? Yeah, a lot of people say you can't drive a beater all the time. It breaks down, no, right? Well, okay, yeah, that's true. Of a lot of beaters, that's the case. I've been driving this one for quite some time, right? You guys seen me do it. You do have to change the oil. You do have to do some maintenance on it. Occasionally an alternator or starter or something like that has to be replaced on it. You got to put some tires on it and brakes every once in a while. Yeah, these things have to happen. Those are going to take place no matter what kind of vehicle you got, right? So, yeah, you have to do those things. This is an ugly truck, right? I paid $1,200 for this truck, I don't know, almost a year and a half ago, right? So I've got my money out of my car and I've got the money out of the truck as far as like what I feel was a return on my money for purchasing and being able to drive around. I mean, like, if you can get $100 a month out of a vehicle, that's a really good deal. Like, if you buy a car and you drove it for 100 or for $100, you drove it a month, yeah, that was awesome, right? I mean, you feel pretty good about that. So if you paid $1,200 for a truck and you drove it for a year, same thing. It breaks down after a year. Hey, you had it for $100 a month. That's a really good deal. That's pretty awesome. It's inconvenient to have it break down, sure. But if you have two vehicles, then it's only like a moments of inconvenience, right? It's just that inconvenience while it was broken down and you had to take it off to the wrecker. But that's the way I look at it. Like, vehicles are cheap. There's cheap cars out there. Looking good in your vehicle is expensive, right? But the vehicle itself, traveling is cheap, and it should be cheap. But people make it expensive. Okay. What does it say? Redizone? Thank you for the $4.99. Simon, have you argued support for crypto coin to give Amazon because it might protect Amazon from being ravaged for gold? No, and I'm trying to think that theory through. How would that stop gold? How would that stop people from going for gold? Like I think if cryptos moves into I think if like central bank digital currency and tokenizing and cryptocurrencies become more prevalent, I think the demand for gold and silver would too, because you're going to need an alternative currency to go alongside of the digital one. See, there's going to be so many people who are going to be like hating on the digital idea that they're going to need another alternative currency. There's really nothing else out there except for gold and silver. So that's going to put the demand for gold and silver on the increase, which I think is going to be more damaging for the Amazon. So no, I think it's going to be quite opposite. All right, but thank you for the question and for the $4.99. I appreciate it. And thank you again, All Nighter, for doing that. All right. Our finance director drives a beater. The younger folk drive expensive ones. Right. If you're a gearhead, you would understand comes from the soul. Now that is one thing that I should pull back on a little bit, is that if you find cars are your hobby, like this is what I do for fun, right? That's a different story, right? Like I have a buddy who has like 11 cars, right? I mean, he's nuts with them, right? He loves these things. He tinkers with them all the time. And it's like his hobby. And like everybody who talks to him about cars. Like that's the only thing he discusses is cars. And it's funny because I told him about my video and he was just like, he laughed at it. He thought it was great. He thought it was a great video too. But that would be the one thing, like, this is your hobby, this is what your passion is, this is what, or even like your business, like, you deal in cars and detailing cars and, whatever, tricking cars out, building cars up, whatever. I mean, if that's your passion, if that's your life, then that's a different story. That's different. What I'm talking about is the guy who's, working his day job, framing walls up, and then he goes out and buys a $70,000 pickup. Like that dude, that's the guy I'm talking about. It's like, man, what are you doing? You should be driving the S10 and framing walls and banking money. That's what you should be doing, But most people want to look good because, well, ultimately guys buy nice cars because they want to get laid. And that's where they think they're going to get it, Monitoring in the United States is very cheap. Motoring, insurance, fuel, road taxes. Tell that to Jay Leno, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, Jay Leno is a collector. It's his passion. It's his hobby. That's what he's into. Gold has no ledger. Yeah. When you consider your down payment, how long you're paying monthly payments along with additional insurance costs on the new car, maintenance and repairs on a beater pays off for itself tenfold in time. Okay, I don't know. I've like over the course, like you guys seen the video here on the channel when I bought the Toyota. All right, so I bought this thing last year. Over the course of like 4 or 5 years, whatever, 4 years, I've paid $1,700 in vehicles. Like 2 vehicles, $1,700. The insurance, the tires, the oil changes, whatever, that went with it. One of them, this one, the alternator went out. I was letting my friend drive it for a while her car was broken down. The alternator went out while she was driving it. That cost, whatever, the couple $100 or whatever it was to put a new alternator in it. Like my car broke down at one point. I was driving this. Like it when it broke down, again, I think it was the starter on the Toyota or something. I can't remember. It was a while ago. But these things when they happen, I mean, you got to have a backup for it. That's why when you're driving a beater, you have two of them, right? The amount of money that I have saved, like I could have gone out and bought a new car a while ago, right? But I haven't spent hardly anything except for the gas and insurance to drive these things around. Like that's really where the expense goes into it. My traveling expense is really, really low. And if one of these were to break down, I have a backup and I would go out and buy another bag. In fact, I'm working on getting another car right now for a really good price and I'm going to park in the barn to have for a backup for one, either this one or the other one goes, right? Because at some point they will die. They are old vehicles. But, you got to be aware of this. I mean, here's the thing. What do you want in life, right? Do you want to like have everything right now? Do you want do you want the fancy car, the fancy life, the fancy like all that stuff? You can go get it. I mean, there's people out there who say, "Here you go, man. Just sign right here, and you can have it, right? And you can have all that stuff." But is that really what it's about, right? Is that what life is all about? Is to like just say, "All right, there's my house, there's my car. Yeah, look at that beautiful woman I got." And I got the kids and I got all these toys over there. What do you think? Huh? You like that? Like, is that really what life is all about? I mean, to me, that like all that stuff is just like it's a big screen or something like that to beef up your ego so you can prove something to somebody. Like I ain't got that in me anymore. Like or if I ever did, I don't know if I ever did, but I ain't got that. Like to me, like I think of my future and I think of like what it is that I could be like. I could always have like food on my plate. Bills are always paid. I can travel around and meet people. I can do like these are the types of things that I'm looking at. Like, as far as like the fancy car, yeah, I mean I see myself for just a minute, like, oh yeah, but that's like as far as the fancy car, that's not in it. Like I don't even really see the house. Like what I see is a flow of money that comes in that allows me to participate in life in a way that doesn't restrict me to have to show up every day to a job or have be burdened by a bank that's saying that we're going to come and foreclose and all this other stuff. Like those are the type of things that I want to exclude out of my life. I don't want to establish this image that I can prove to people, look at what I've done, and that's what happens when you're like, here, sign here, that's what's going on there. Once the COMEX loses control of the price of gold and silver, the price of both will skyrocket. Yeah, I've heard that one before. I mean, I don't mean to sigh long or whatever on that, but that's the same thing that I heard from Max Kaiser, back in 2011, crash JP Morgan buy silver campaign. I mean, I didn't lose. I spent a lot of money on silver during a time when I shouldn't have been. Right? And I learned my lesson. It's okay. A lesson well learned. I think places like the Caribbean and Latin America could use your insight. The price of gold and silver will be what you can get for it. All right. 2023 search YouTube fix your car. Man, you can buy precious metals with crypto. Yeah. Good evening, UE, and all 8+ billion around the world from Kenosha. All right, I'm framing another deck right now. Nice. Alrighty, guys. I gotta go. It's like I've been doing this for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Oh my gosh. You're so awesome for sticking it out as long as you have. I mean, 350 of you up in here, 523 likes, $110 in super chats. You guys are so awesome. What a great live stream to do today. It's been great. I got 2 beaters. Absolutely. I'm the same. What was that? Was that all-nighter? Hello, I'm getting questions about pants sucks. I don't know what that was all about. All right. Pure poison. My plan C is a mini bike. I have always kept depreciation down to under $500 per year on every car that I have owned. Record length UE stream today. Dang, yeah, it is. We definitely pushed it to the limits on this one. I had the fuel pump fail on my 20-year-old car. Be aware to replace it before it breaks. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, having old vehicles, you got to drive them fairly regularly. Or because, like, the moment that you let them sit and you fire them up, and all of a sudden belts and sensors and hoses and everything just starts to, so you gotta try to, if they sit for a while, then you have issues. Yeah. All right, how's your day in Ontario? I want land. Why not try figure out a way to make enough income to drive a new vehicle, like raise your income? Okay, I have the money to drive a new vehicle. Like, I have it, I could do it right now. Like, I can make the payments. I could go really and get any car I want. Like, I mean, even a really expensive car. I mean, I probably couldn't go get no damn Lamborghini or Ferrari or Bugatti or something like that, but I could go get BMW, I could go get, fancy $70,000 truck if I wanted. I could go get the Camaro. I could even go really fancy Camaro, I could go get anything I want. I don't want to make the payments. I don't want to have to be concerned about somebody denting the car or running into the car when I'm out at the grocery store. Like, I would even take it to the grocery. In fact, I wouldn't even take it anywhere. I would only drive it and take it, like, on the road and then back to my house, because I would be concerned about that, right? I do not concern myself with this truck. Like, this truck has my concern level, like, is this much. Like, literally. Like, at one point, I didn't even know where it was. Like, I didn't even know. I didn't. I was like, my friend Susie had the truck, and I don't even know where it was. Like, I didn't care. Same thing with the car. Like, my concern over those things are very low. My only concern is whether or not I'm going to make it to work, right? That's where my concern is. And so if I have 2 vehicles, my concern for making it to work on time, again, is pretty low, on all that stuff. So it's not a matter of the income. It's a matter of, like, being able to do other things in your life. Like, if you are spending $1,000 on driving every month, from the payments to the insurance to the maintenance to the gas to everything that goes into it, then that's $1,000 that you're not going to be able to, do fun things with your family. Like, I spend $200 a month on my vehicles, and that gives me $800 to do whatever the hell I want with every month. Holy moly, talk about having some fun, right? I mean, I don't look cool getting there, but it doesn't matter. I can enjoy whatever I want once I'm there, and that's what's cool about it. Like, I watched this kid, like, I'm sitting in my little busted down, like, it's not busted down, but my little Toyota, and I'm getting it filled up, and I'm sitting, yeah, cool, yeah, guys, go, whatever. And I see this kid pull up in this really beautiful truck, right? And he pulls up to the gas pump, and I kid you not, like, 4 inches comes out of this truck. It, like, sinks. And I'm like, oh, that is cool, right? This kid, he looks like he's probably 24 years old. He jumps out of this truck and puts $20 in the tank. And I'm thinking, that's it? That's, I mean, you put $20 in this truck, like, that's not going to get you very far in this truck. I know it. Like, I mean, I drive a Toyota. $20 gets me a ways, but it's like, it doesn't get you very far, right? And that's what he put into this truck. I'm thinking, why did you only put 20? Because that's all you can afford. All your money is going into buying this thing and paying for the insurance and everything else that goes with it. And now you got so much money tied up into this truck that you can't even afford the gas to power it down the road. Like, you cannot possibly be having a good time, right? I mean, even if you could barely have the gas to power it down the road, once you get there, what are you going to do? Like, you go to the party and you're going to have, like, I brought my one beer to drink, or whatever, or like, that's what I'm kind of getting at, is just like, by not raising your income to buy a new car, raising your income to go and enjoy the rest of the stuff that you really want in your life, right? I mean, unless you're like the gearhead or the hobbyist or whatever, So, I'm going to have to go. My battery's going to die soon. I can't believe it. I ran through an entire battery here today. 3.5 hours live streaming. My gosh. Did I get another super chat down there? I did. Carib Invest TV. Well, thank you very much for the €5. Is that what that is? Very cool of you. I'm happy with the 50,000K car. It is all about preference. I make enough money and save enough money. That's all there is to it, right? I mean, if you make enough and save enough and you're cool with it, then that's it. I don't make enough. I mean, I do, but I don't. Not enough for me anyway, and I save enough, but not enough to buy a car, right? I mean, I do both, but I could do it. I don't want the car as much as I want all the money and the experiences that I can have with the money, I guess. All right, it took me a decade to be debt-free. I can drive a new car and be normal anytime I choose. I choose being debt-free. He's probably just trying to get to his girlfriend's house. I drive an SUV. I don't always fill it up. I fill up my car for one, I live way out of town, but I always fill my tank up, and I try to keep it filled. I try not to let the gas tank run low, just because, like, we live in an area where we get a lot of major storms, and you just kind of get used to needing some of the things of necessity that may not be available, like gas, food, firewood, propane, whatever it is. A lot of times it's not so bad now, but there was a time, like the Highway 30 between, like, where I live and Astoria, there would be trees that would go down every year, and sometimes they would be blocked for quite a while, as far as, what it is that you, as far as traveling to town. So what it is you needed, you had to better already have had it, or else you're going to have to deal without. And that kind of forces you already into, like, this prepper mindset by default, And, I'm going to have to go. I'm starting to slur my words. Funny. All right. We are so screwed in our economy. Shelters are full of pets because nobody can afford them and the landlords are restricting them. Yeah, I get that. I would love a great crappy car channel. All right. Hey, I'm on Highway 30, or what becomes of it? All right. I don't feel the need to impress others. I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know how to impress people. When I try to impress people, I feel like I just make myself look stupid, right? I don't know. People come and tell me, it was just like, dude, I'm really impressed by your channel. And it was just like, oh, right. I didn't mean to be. I didn't, like, I mean, not trying to brag or anything like that, but I didn't mean to be impressive on the channel. That's not what, like, I would try to be impressive doing other things, and people are like, dude, you look weird, So, yeah, I don't try to impress people either. All right. What direction do you think the housing market is going? Sideways. And I don't mean to be like, just to avoid the question. I really do think it's going to go sideways, for a while. Uneducated Economist, financial independence is more important than egos. Absolutely it is. The consumer is so screwed. Down. All right. Camry safer than Corolla, right? I don't know. Is it? Good morning from New Zealand. All right. Read GDH Cole if you get a chance. Decentralized economics. I have an old 89 Toyota and a 2004 Audi. The Audi is crappier. Alrighty, guys. I'm done. Alright, I can't do it anymore. It's been 3.5 hours that I've been out here hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much. 300 people are hung out this entire time. Over 500 we got 543 likes. $115 in super chats. You guys are always so generous. Thank you so much for all the super chats. Thank you very much for the participation with all the comments. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for being here, for the support, everything that you do for me. It's so awesome to have this going on, and I am going to continue with the videos as much as I can, trying to bring out the economic awareness so that we can all make the great decisions that we need to for ourselves and our families to, do the best for ourselves that we can. All right. Thank you, All Nighter, for being here and giving all those thanks and watching out for those super chats. I really appreciate it, and really appreciate everybody who has joined the membership on the channel to look for those early postings for the UE videos and some of the private ones that I'll try and do for you guys. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.